Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday, January 29th, 2014 meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. First item on the agenda are minutes. Well, first item on the agenda is we have a new member. Those of you, well, we've all probably met Russ because he's been sitting in here for a month, but finally he was appointed. So Russell Robbins, for those of you who might have to address him. Jen will get a sign for next week. That's right, take any positive. Okay, minutes of November 15th and November 19th. I've been promised that we're going to have them in 2 weeks. Actually, there's another announcement. The other announcement is, thanks to the graciousness of Mr. Borselli, who has continued his RDA for next week, we will not have a meeting next week because all we have for next week was one RDA. And Mike, as well as all the commissioners and Jen, did not want to come in for one RDA.
Thank you, Mike.
Take that into consideration.
Yeah, actually, you owe me something tonight, so I, not quite.
Nice try.
January 15th. Has anybody read the minutes of the 15th?
I did not.
I actually
They be
did.
accepted as presented.
Did you read them?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to accept the minutes of the 15th. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Okay, request for a hearings under a notice of intent. Is anybody here, no RDAs today? All right. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are heard simultaneously under the authority of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. First up is Robert and Maura McCormick, 93 T-Ticket Path, East Falmouth, for permission to construct a 4-foot by 99-foot fixed pier that includes 10-inch pilings, 6-inch by 6-inch post, 2-inch by 6-inch handrails, decking, stringers, yokes, cross bracing, water and electrical service, steps, and the associated clearing, grading, and landscaping. Jen. Good evening, Mike. Do you know what one of my problems is? Did Jen tell you?
I thought it might have something to do with some staking.
Yeah. It was a challenge to find sites this week.
Well, I'll speak to that.
Yes, you, couple of Mikes.
Was I not the only one?
You were
No,
not the, you were not the only
You're
one.
okay,
not the
good.
only one. Having said that, someone who's not here tonight did a wonderful staking job, and I'll tell him when I next see him. Okay,
For the
but
rec-
I could figure out what you wanted to do
Okay,
here.
well, for the record, my name is Michael Borselli from Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant, Robert and Maura McCormick. I apologize for the late staking of these sites. The snowstorm last week and then the severe cold after caused us to kind of fall behind. And there may be other reasons to continue this hearing, I don't know, but I'm hoping that you were able to get the gist of it. The staking in itself did cause this to be continued. So I represent the McCormicks who own the property at number 93, and it's directly adjacent to a property that you may remember that I represented the applicant on, adjacent at lot 95 next door. The McCormicks have applied for permission to build a dock at the property they own at number 93. And we proposed the dock to meet your standards, your typical standards for construction and the performance standards within the regulations. The lot is on Perch Pond. I've shown the water depth soundings. I've shown the wetland resources adjacent to Perch Pond, which includes a small beach, some salt marsh, and a non-eroding coastal bank, and all those things are shown on the plans. There's an existing single-family dwelling on the property. So we designed the dock taking into account a couple of things. The results from the shellfish survey, which is part of the notice of intent application, indicated that there were some shellfish in the nearshore areas, and those areas are highlighted in a peach color on this presentation drawing. And then, after a very short distance, the substrate changed to a more anoxic mud consistency, and the density of shellfish diminished dramatically. You have a performance standard that requires that the mooring field for the dock be set back a minimum of 35 feet from the area of significant density. So this dock was specifically designed to meet that performance standard. If you notice on the plan, we highlight the mooring field location, and we demonstrated that we're 35 feet away. The water depths in and around the mooring field area are in excess of 4 feet. They range from 4.4 to 5 feet out in this location. And if you also look at the configuration of the lot, it's a pie-shaped lot in that it's narrower at the waterfront than it is at the street. And you have another standard within your regulations that requires the pier to be no less than 10 feet from a projection of a property line. And we've dashed in the projections of the property lines, and you can see that we're 14 feet off of the southern property line and we're 13 feet off of the northerly property line. So with those setbacks in mind and the requirement for the separation from the shellfish, that resulted in the design of the pier to be a straight pier without an L or a T, which is a preferred configuration in your regulations. The applicant understands that you prefer to have the T, but he is being very much cognizant of the tight quarters here, and they're very close friends with the neighbors next door. Trying to have a T configuration in this location would make it difficult at best to have two boats tied parallel to shore. For that reason, and because of the requirement for a 10-foot setback, the configuration of the lot and the waterfront didn't lend itself to providing the typical requested T. Not required, preferred, I guess is the best way to say it. The applicant is more than willing and expects that there could be a condition that this is the only place he can tie. In fact, if we need to take steps with railings and other design elements to the dock to try to discourage that, we're happy to accept any conditions like that. But I wanted to make it clear that's how this design got to this configuration. There's a profile of the dock, and you can see that it's the typical pier design with 10-inch diameter pilings spaced at the typical 16 feet on center, cross bracing, and the through-flow decking for sunlight penetration. The dock will terminate on the above the beach on the slope and have a set of stairs for access. The elevation of the pier is such that it provides clearance underneath, which is a requirement of Chapter 91. I believe that the dock's been designed to meet your standards, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Jen?
Yes, Madam Chair, although I understand Mr. Vaselli's argument that the dock is, has to be cognizant to the neighbors, this board's job is to protect the environment. So if you've always seen T, you like Ts for certain reasons, staff would like to see that.
Or
I think
modified T.
shorten the dock because it'll bring it within 45 feet of density, and Steve wouldn't meet the setback requirements under your regulations. Mike, what is setback requirement for chapter 91 for the property line? Is it 10?
They're 25,
Okay.
unless you get permission from the neighbor, or you get what they call a letter of no objection, which we will get from both neighbors before we file with Chapter 91. You need to get, both neighbors have to be aware that you're within 25 feet when you apply for your license, and they cannot object unless they have a very specific navigational reason for objecting. So we meet your standard, and we will meet their standard with the letters.
Okay, Mike, what's the date on the plan on the board?
Well, there's two dates. There's the original date of August 23rd, 2013, and then there's the November 26th, 2013.
How come that doesn't look like the plan
How
that
come
I have in
plan
front of me?
doesn't look like my plan?
The only difference is, what's different? What
The-
date do
The
you have?
dock next to your proposed dock has a float and a T on it, whereas
Right.
the dock right here does not?
Right. The reason that is on there is so I could show you, if you look at the plan in your file, at the time that we did the survey, the ramp and float weren't there. So you have approved that ramp and float. It's received a certificate of compliance. That was the approved dock on the plan. So I was adding what you approved to the plan for this presentation to show you, or to reemphasize how close the two docks would be.
Question, did Mr. Sleeper get permission from lot 96 or 93 for the 25-foot, or are they 25 feet away?
I believe he got the letters of no objection. I don't remember. I'd have to look in the file, but he did get his Chapter 91
Yeah,
license.
Chapter 91 license, we got a no objection letter from 93, but now there's a navigational issue, if you put a T there. And that wasn't thought of before? Or is it a different owner?
I'm not sure I follow.
There wasn't a dock there.
I understand that, but that what was the sleeper dock, off the top of my head, I can't remember, Mike, when you did that one.
It was within the last, we got a
Yeah,
year or
it was the
two.
last like 5 years, right?
Well, it was less than 5. We got a certificate of compliance probably in the last 6 months.
Okay.
The point I'm trying to make is, we're trying to be good neighbors and make it so that, you know, everyone has equal access to the waterfront, and there's no measurable difference to the environmental impact whether you have a T or this straight dock with proper conditions. The water depth is like almost 5 feet, and your minimum standard's 3.
Yeah, but it's
Like
four
your water
pilings,
line,
it's
Mike.
4 pilings and extra decking.
True, but it also is within the overall maximum length allowed, and it's designed to meet your standard for protecting the shellfish bed of 35 feet. I mean, it's not longer than you allow, and it's, if you would waive the 35 feet, we would make it shorter. If you're telling me you'd rather have it shorter, we can reduce the length as long as you waive the 35 foot to the shellfish.
I don't think
You
it
don't-
should be the board's.
You don't have to
the
waive
board
the
should
35
have
feet to have a
waive
T
it.
there, Mike.
The board hasn't approved, a preferred way they'd like to see docks. I mean.
I need
you
to
gotta
hear
take
from one
orders
person
here,
at a
Mike.
time.
Like electrical and water line?
Can we
He
talk
has that.
about
Oh,
this
he has
He
that?
issue?
requested that.
I think the most important issue to talk about right now is how the board
Wait a
feels
second.
about the T.
When I read what this was going to be, it says water and electrical service.
Yeah, but is it on the plan? Oh, you have the trench, that's what I'm asking, Mike, is your water and electrical service?
It shows it on the cross-section.
Yeah, it shows on the cross section, it doesn't show on your plan either, right?
I'm happy to add that. to the-
Okay, that's all, I was just wondering, I noticed I didn't see it there, so, I
Yeah.
didn't see it in the plan view.
We'll come back to the design in a minute. Let's, Lori, any questions?
Well, my question is about the mooring field. What's going to stop him from pulling up further? I mean, it's a field on paper. It actually goes beyond the length of the dock.
Well, what's going to stop anyone from pulling up further
A
on any
tee,
dock?
a tee, if you could only moor outside the tee.
Oh, I'm not so sure, because a person could tie inside the tee. You know, people can do what they want with the boats. I
But you're
mean,
less likely to do it than in a situation like this.
will you waive the 10-foot setback?
We'll
Madam
talk about that in
Chairman,
a
please don't
minute.
go down that road.
Go on. You're
I'm just
you're
concerned
with
about
a-
that.
With a mooring field.
Yeah. I mean, with the straight dock, there's nothing to stop them proceeding beyond the mooring field. It's just a line on a piece of paper the way it is now.
Well, there is one thing, that you can make it a condition, that you can only tie the boat in the specified mooring field.
We're not going to have that discussion. We're not
I'm-
going to have the enforcement discussion tonight.
That's fine, I'm just
We'll-
telling you.
We'll come back to that issue, Lori.
Fine.
Russ,
No question.
no question? Tom?
Well, couple things. I introduced myself to the neighbors. I noticed they were home, and I just wanted to just check and see about note or abutter-ification. Did I say that right? Butter, note,
Butter
yeah, whatever.
notification.
Nutter butter, happy peanut butter, whatever.
sounded
Okay,
good.
The people next door. So, in a brief conversation, I showed them the plans and such. We discussed about the storage of the pieces up on the beach. That was
picture of
something
that.
that, and that's just something, I think now that we're better informed, and we realize that that's something that, in the upland is a better choice to do. The timbers that are on the bank, the condition of the bank itself, they're gonna be addressing pathway and such, that, I think educating the new owners is gonna be important. The health of that bank, because of typical, it was a renting situation, the typical dumping of all the materials, garden waste, leaves and all that, really just doesn't help that bank at all, along with the creosote ties that were in the middle of that, then I think that could be part of this, if they're gonna be doing activities there, to clean up a portion of that, and not, just inform them that cutting things, and it's not that it can't be allowed, it just needs to be understood, you want to promote the health of that bank. If I may jump in a little bit on how the dock is in the mooring field, if that's okay.
Yes.
I do not have a real strong objection to it being in the position where it is. If, on the plan, it shows the rails being completed so as to inhibit people from crossing in conveniently, it kind of dictates where that is. I originally had concerns about how big a boat, is it gonna be bow in, is it gonna be bow out? But you have substantial, compared to most, in that mooring field, depth at the low tide. You really do have that, and you have materials that are not a concern of in that, heavy concern in shellfish area. I think they bridged the shellfish area appropriately with the minimal amount of piles that are in there. Again, as far as the boat is, when someone makes an investment in a boat and a dock, they really don't want to ground out a boat that, and it's, I always look at the cup half full. I don't see people doing something intentionally to either disrupt, particularly after making an investment like this. This is a learning curve for the new owner. 15 years from now, if they sell it and somebody else comes in, I can't speak to that. But as far as the applicant now, I take it with a spoon of sugar that this is an investment for them and their activities therein. If it's addressed, as I see it, that you designate that side, even if you had a slightly larger boat than the mooring field and it's stuck outward, you're limiting yourself, the mooring field's roughly 20 feet. If you had a 24-foot boat, and you add another 3 feet for miscellaneous transom, engine, all that happiness, and it still got, if the front of it or the rear of it is at that 35-foot mark, I don't see it impeding navigationally. I think it was a true consideration for others around them. And, it's an attempt to satisfy all our inquiries. I'm getting really long-winded, I didn't mean to.
I thought the issue was shellfish.
It's not in an area, there is shellfish there, but it's not in an
They're
area
beyond the
that's,
shellfish.
in the peach, that area here, closer to that.
Yeah, I understand that, but
There's only two
I remember Mike saying that it was 35 feet from the shellfish.
That's where the beginning of the mooring field is.
Here, we're
And
beginning.
if, in my eyes, if you have rails and such that come up, and that terminates at the 35-foot mark, that either the stern or the bow is at that 35-foot mark.
So
Whether
you're
it
saying
includes
railings on both sides? but
railings
the
on both sides,
on the
but
boat side
the-
only
the
go to
mooring
where the mooring
side,
field
where you
starts.
disembark,
Right.
if that designates the beginning of the mooring field. I don't know if I'd require it at the end, because you could pull up and jump off the end. But on the side that you're concerned about, if you have physical, right. That's, exactly. And that way, it denotes the embarking, disembarking, beginning of the mooring field, and that's how I feel about it. That's all I got out of it.
Are you done?
Yep.
That was a good analysis. It was long, but
Yeah, no, very good. Sorry about that.
Tommy,
I'm failing to see why this dock wouldn't comply. I mean, it seems that he has met all of the regulations and
it does meet regulations. It's just that it's preferred to have a
to have a T.
have a
and
T
in-
just for the reasons that we
Right, and in this
articulated.
situation, he can't have a T and meet the regulations, so. I mean, I'm in favor of the railings to encourage people to use the mooring field and have a condition to clean up some of the debris on the beach, but I'm gonna vote in favor of it because it complies with the regulations.
Court,
If he were to use a conventional T, you're saying then in effect he could only moor one boat, tie one boat to that because it would get tied to the outside of the T, the sea side of it.
right. I mean, as Mike said,
So-
people can do whatever they like, but in theory,
So-
that's the,
Let me build on Tom's point. So it has that mooring field designated, and Tom, were you suggesting that the railing that goes on the, whatever side it is toward the sleeper's lot, to this lot 95, that railing would go all the way to the end and then turn the corner?
It doesn't have to turn the
So the only place
corner.
they could put a boat and embark and disembark would be at that one point where it's labeled mooring field. Is that what you're saying?
No,
essentially, he's saying that.
yeah, for all intents and purposes, yes.
So if is that the way we want to condition it if we were to approve this?
I think that would be something.
And they would
Yeah.
have to come back to us with a design that's acceptable as to what a solid rail is, like lattice or something, so that you can't, it's permanent and it's clear and it's there.
I mean, I would continue the hearing and come back with a revised plan.
Okay, because I have something else that's completely
I
different.
mean, that would get around the issue of the T that you're concerned about.
You've done that before in cases where it's been an L, to do it, so you guys didn't want boats on the inside of the L?
Right, right,
You used the railing condition before.
right,
So
right.
you have done it.
Because the L still gives you one side, and
Yeah.
in the end, the
So, I
T
mean,
makes
Right.
it so.
It has been done. I have another question.
Yeah, but I have a question, and I'm going to go first.
Okay.
Mike, I would like you to bring us back a plan with those details, but there's something else that I'm concerned about. And that is, I'd like you to show the pathway to the dock? Because right now it's through, through buffer vegetation. I mean, obviously you can get down there, but show us where they intend to be walking back and forth. And I had forgotten, I actually took a picture of the float that's stored there on the bank. All of that should be removed, and that should be replanted, that bank area.
I can note that on the plan, and I can highlight where it is.
Okay. Jen?
Mike, if you were to extend the property line on the northern property, the Nickerson property, and extend it out, how would that look? So it would go straight out into that pie.
It'd be like that. They'd have the next piece of pie, and they would be confronted with the same issue. And if I were hired, I would be coming back with a dock.
With the same solution.
All over it.
But if you extend it out all the way to where, let's say, this one is, I don't even think you have 10 feet on either side.
Well, I'm just trying to
If
demonstrate
you look
that.
at it.
I'm doing that right here. If you see how I have that,
No, I know, I just drew it on my plan with my scale.
So
And if
this-
I measure it,
it's the same width as the McCormick width.
Well, we're not at that point.
well, what I'm saying is, so they have received a letter from the Nickersons waiving that 25-foot offset.
No, they have not yet. They will. They will receive a letter. They will receive a request to sign a letter that says we have no objection to the proposed dock. They were notified as abutters, and I don't think they're here, but they may be here. But we can't go past, we can.
But that's for the you
That-
need
right.
that for Chapter 91.
Yeah, otherwise we can't get a
You
license.
can't have a lock. You
and
can't have a
a
dock.
dock.
Right. You have to go through the Board of Selectmen, too.
I'm just saying, Madam Chairman, you start putting in, I mean, the Division of Marine Fisheries said it best in your letter, look at the cumulative impacts of all the docks on Bird Pond over the past 5, 6, 8 years. You want to, I mean, how many, Mike, how many have you done in Bird Pond? You got to look at the cumulative effect, so.
I don't know that anyone's studied any, I haven't seen any reports on any cumulative effect from those 8 or 9 docks I've permitted in this pond.
We're not going there. We're sticking with what the
I'm
regular.
saying there's a cumulative effect with the number of docks in Bird Pond, and that's, all right. Path, Mike, and can you, somebody show me where the water line is at?
Well, it's on the cross-section, Jen,
It's on the front.
and I'm going to show
It
it.
says all
Yeah,
proposed
put it on
lighting
there.
shall be,
It's over here, on the bottom left-hand corner.
Oh, okay, got it.
But
All right,
it's
can you
not,
show the trench when you do the path? Thank you.
Yes.
That's what I was looking for.
I made a note to do
Okay,
that.
great, thanks, Mike.
Mike, would you like a continuance?
Is that all the issues?
Well, I don't know.
Railing
Those were the
path,
issues I had.
Railing path, water sewer
We'll
line,
open it up for
view,
questions once
event.
we put a date on.
I would like to request a 2-week continuance if possible.
On behalf of the applicant, I'd
Well,
like
wait a
to-
second. Let's make sure there's room in 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
Back here anyway, into, yeah, come on up.
February 12th.
On behalf of the applicant, I move this to February 12th for continuance.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue to February 12th. Are there any other questions here on the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, hearing none, we'll take the vote. All in favor of a continuance to February 12th, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for your suggestions.
Aha, another one that was somewhat of a puzzle to find in the snow today. Yours was before the snow though, Mike. I got out to yours on Monday. Neil Dunn and Renee Russo, 25 Moses Road, North Falmouth, for permission to raise, R-A-Z-E, the existing dwelling and construct a 4-bedroom house on concrete piers with decks, stairs, concrete wall, to remove concrete driveways and replace with crushed shells, relocate the existing fence, remove concrete, install native utilities, plantings and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Request for a variance under FWR 10.13 from the performance standards set out in FWR 10.384D2. Jen?
I'll say again, there's my comments, is after Barbara's presentation.
Barbara?
Good evening.
Good evening.
For the record, Barbara Frappier with Warwick and Associates, representing Neil Dunn and Renee Russo for this property in this filing. Here tonight is Mr. Dunn, his builder Jordan Race, and the architect Michael Collins. First, may I say I am sorry that if you had difficulty, the only two things I was asked to mark was two stakes to show the 100-foot buffer. We never got to it with the storm and the weather.
Oh, I got to it.
Well, no, you got to it, you found it.
I didn't find any two stakes.
No, we
but-
didn't put them in, because that was the
Oh.
only thing I was asked to put out there.
Oh,
And, but I figured, there's not much you can stake there. It's a small lot, and it's either concrete or building for the most part.
but I do, actually, that brings up a point, though, for everybody. It's really helpful, just because a lot of these houses, I mean, I don't think it's very good for the fire department, but don't have their numbers.
And we
So
had
even if you
a
just
number
have, I
on
mean,
a-
you have a sign that you usually have, but if you just have a
We had a flimsy sign tacked to the telephone pole, which
blew
blew
away,
away.
okay?
Point well taken. Normally, I'm very quick with the presentation, and I don't get into the backstory, but I think in this case, it might be interesting. This is the house in question. Mr. Dunn and his family had in recent past some health issues, which fortunately dissipated. But in the end, you know how those things sometimes make you reassess what's important in life. And what they decided to do was buy a summer cottage. So this is the house they purchased down in New Silver Beach. And the family came down, and they were doing their own little take on the house, making some repairs, putting their own stamp on it, dolling it up a bit. And in the process of doing that, a storm came, and a microburst hit the house and ripped the roof off. So now, this little dolling up project became a major project, doing the roof and all the other resultant damage. The problem with that was that when you added up what all the repairs were going to cost then, we exceeded the 50% assessed value level, and he had no choice. This was not what he wanted to do, but he had no choice, and they were required to tear the house down and rebuild to FEMA standards. So it's not the road he started down, but this is the road we're on. This area of New Silver Beach, it's Moses Road. If you were out there before the snow, it was easy to see that there's riprap all along the beachfront, and there is an extensive concrete cap that comes along. I have some pictures here. An extensive concrete cap that comes along from the riprap right up to the houses. Nothing that would be allowed today, but it's the system that they have down there, and it's a system that works for them. What is proposed to do is remove the house and install a pier foundation on footings. The house first floor will be elevated to an elevation of 20.6, I believe. Anyways, it's above the FEMA and building code standards, and it meets your requirements for first habitable space in a velocity flood zone. There will be no living space beneath there. Right now, the lower level does have habitable space at ground level, as well as a garage. And once the house is constructed, there will be additional planting. The footprint for this house is actually almost 300 square feet between the concrete and the house, about 300 square feet less footprint on the lot, and it is moved back from the top of the riprap a few feet. Not a lot, but a few. There's also a proposal to add some shrubbery and plantings along here. Right now, about all that's there is some mulch and a few clumps of ornamental grasses, but we feel that it's important to put some native shrubbery in here for a variety of reasons, one of which is what ties into why we're asking for the variance, is taking care of underneath and around the piers. What we're asking for in this instance, the variance, is a variance from your requirement that these piers be open. We would like to put in breakaway panels, and the reasons are several. If you read the narrative, obviously the applicant would like to have the security, the safety, and the aesthetics, all of which are really not in your realm. From a different standpoint, is what this lot becomes when you remove this solid structure. Right now, this is almost like a defensive line. All of these soldiers are lined up. Most of them, I think only 2 that I could figure out, had breakaway type panels. Most of the houses on this strip have livable space and solid walls. They all have that riprap, they all have the apron. When you have storm wave activity, be it severe or just a really high tide during a moon tide, everything washes up, slams up against the house, or dribbles up against the house. The concrete slab is covered with concrete. It's just the way it works. But it works as a system. Over the years, they've created this system that works for storm damage prevention. The concern would be that you take this house here out and you remove this defenseman right here. This is going to create a funnel and almost like a sluiceway. It's going to be a weak spot in this defensive line right here along the shore. And what happens is when the water hits the house on either side, it's going to shoot that way. There is nothing preventing what comes over here from ripping right through underneath those pilings, taking what's ever in there, running it right down the driveway, and putting it on the property of number 24 on the other side of Moses Road. The other problem with having this open and susceptible to velocity and volume from storm waves, and again, it doesn't have to be a hurricane, is that you're causing potential erosion around this footing system. The breakaway panels, and I have Mr. Collins here that can address how it would work. They would be passive. The interior, I know one of the problems with having enclosures is you have flotsam and jetsam, maybe more if you have it enclosed. However, we are proposing to install storage systems or in the form of hangers or lockers that can be mounted either from the joists on the back side of a pier, a hanger, so that some of these things that normally are going to be stored under here could be kept out of the way, and they would not interfere with the panels if they had to break. There is no lawn on this property. There's no need for a weed whacker, a lawnmower, so there's no gasoline storage for yard maintenance equipment. We think that this is, considering the circumstances that have led to this, that we are proposing something that is in keeping with the neighborhood, one of your, to the best of Mr. Dunn's ability. We have maintained a sense of aesthetic, which is one of your interests of your bylaw, and we feel that the project as proposed is permittable and it would be good for this neighborhood.
That's it?
That's it, I'm done.
I was a little weak on the variance request.
You think?
Yeah.
Well, what do you want? What more would you like? You pick my brains and I'll answer the question.
I'll let
All right.
people go through. Jen? Jen agrees with me.
Creative.
Creative.
That, Barbara.
Creative.
So the argument about creating a sluice way.
Mm-hmm.
breakaway panels do what they're supposed to do and allow the water to flow through, isn't that doing the same thing?
The breakaway panels,
It's not
if
to
you,
stop the force of the ocean, Barbara.
the breakaway panels, if you look at these, the two houses that I saw down there that have panels that are breakaway, they're not permanent solid walls like most of the other houses, it's going to take a severe storm and some severe damage to knock those panels out.
That's not the way it should work.
But that's the way they are. I'm-
But we're not talking about those houses.
All right, but I'm
We're talking
saying,
about your house.
we
We're
want to
talking
have
about your
panels that are
design
going to
and
break
your
in a
variance.
storm, not in an overtopping in a spring tide with a little wind blowing, which happens there now all the time.
And you're saying that the spring tide and overtopping, that house is gonna stop water.
Yeah.
I
It's
spent
not gonna
a
stop
lot-
a
I spent
hurricane.
lot of time
It
in
just gets
Silver
funneled
Beach,
to either
Barbara.
side.
Yeah.
But
Barbara,
it's-
I spent a
it-
lot of time in New Silver Beach, so, I mean, another question, how
Mm-hmm.
far down is the, I can't remember.
Is the opening for the parking
Beach,
lot for the
yeah.
beach? I have a photograph. Well,
There you go.
here's the house,
That house.
one,
About
two, three, and the
Six
next
houses
one.
down.
Six houses
Yeah,
down.
I was gonna say 4.
You got that right here to the Rock Road.
Other than that, Barbara, your project meets the performance standards except for this one, so you don't have a problem with your resource area buffers. We knew going into this, the breakaway panel issue was gonna be raised, and really the board is gonna have to decide
Right.
what they wanna do. I do understand what your client's been through, doing the repairs, then getting hit with the roof issue, getting caught up in the new building codes requiring this. I do understand that, I do sympathize. What the board's gonna have to decide, what to do about the breakaway panels and, be consistent with their,
I think,
previous decision.
I think, Jen, that the board, in their deliberations in the past, has been receptive to the idea of breakaway panels in situations where it's a raise and rebuild, or storm damage, or something like that, as opposed to, it's not like this is a empty lot, and we're coming in with a brand-new house, and we want to build something new. This is in keeping with every other house along the way, and I do believe by leaving this open is not a good idea.
I'll tell you what,
That's up for the
I think,
decide.
but here's what I'm gonna suggest. Just take the variance off the record. I mean, we have permitted breakaway panels in certain circumstances and not permitted them in others. It has to do with the topography of the land, it's a discussion.
Site-specific, whether there's a structure, whether there's non.
Right, so just take the variance off, because believe me, you didn't come close to meeting the variance.
Hardship,
Well, the hardship is, he didn't create the situation, that he has to build his
that's not
house.
what the hardship argument.
You don't want to go, you don't need a variance.
I won't go there.
You don't need a variance. We're either going to allow, we're very sympathetic, it's terrible to have this happen, has to happen. But it did happen, it's going to be a lovely house when it's done. The question is, it may or may not have breakaway panels, and that's something we'll discuss in
If
deliberation.
you feel the variance approach is inappropriate in this filing, then I will withdraw that aspect of it.
Yeah, I do feel it's inappropriate.
Consider
You
it.
made a, like we said, a very creative,
I like the
Argument. but,
You like the,
but as
I
with,
agree with it, but I
as
like
with
it.
many arguments we have with people who come before us, we enjoy the intellectual discussion and imagination,
repartee,
but we may not agree with it.
that's right.
But
Can we have copies of the little inserts that you have, unless you
These
put them
pictures?
in- you can
Yes.
have them in your-
These are pictures that I got. This one here, this is
Yeah.
a drawing from the architect that you do
Yeah.
not have.
Yes, can we
I also
that?
have the, I do believe I gave you some landscape things, but I will give you whatever I have here.
Gave us this one.
I gave you new plans that showed the existing and the proposed house separated because the plan,
Yeah.
yeah,
it was too busy.
yeah. Okay,
So
Barb,
if you could just give us the pictures for the record, because anything presented at the hearing is part of the record, so
I'll
we
give
need,
you the
we
landscape
need to
one.
take those from Barb, sorry. Or at least have you drop off copies
that's
tomorrow.
for you, and you write down the date that she puts it in. for the record. And that one too. Courtney?
Jen actually stole a lot of my thunder, but that's not the first time. But as far as the breakaway panels, I'm having trouble swallowing your creative argument. Because if breakaway panels are properly designed to break away when there's a flood, then the erosion problem that you're concerned about would continue. And if you had a breakaway panels that only broke away when it got nasty, real nasty, then you kind of defeated the purpose of the breakaway panels. So I'm having a hard time with that argument, okay? The other
You'd be
thing is.
better off having
is-
that water
is
just-
by extension, we've looked at a lot of these, a lot of applications that come in front of us with requests for breakaway panels, and truthfully, speaking for myself, I want to be sympathetic to the arguments for breakaway panels, though our regulations are very clear that, we don't like them. We have seen some very creative solutions to the breakaway panels, which you haven't advanced here, but the argument behind those creative solutions is that the breakaway panels would almost disappear prior to the storm coming. You see? And we listened to that with great interest. We had one recently that this was the outline of it. And in the end, we had to look at our regulations and say, you know what? It's a great idea, we'd love to entertain it, but the regulations as we now have them don't encompass that. So, I think you've got an issue here. You've got a project which is, I think, permittable, except for the issue of the breakaway panels, and at least from our point of view. And I'm not sure how you resolve that dilemma, quite honestly. I mean, you can request a variance, but that's a hard sell.
Could I just say that I think, as I said in the beginning, there is a system there that works. But all of these properties get overtopped and water banging on them without having some big storm going out there. You don't want to have your panels being knocked off every time you got a summer breeze blowing water up over the side and piling seaweed up on your front walk. I mean, on your waterside walk. You want panels that are going to be durable enough.
Well, if they're
Well,
designed
let's just go on and
properly,
see if there are any more,
Yeah.
we know what they want.
Yeah, but if they're designed properly, they don't break away from the building, because there's
No, they
things
break
that
in,
hold them on.
right.
But they break away so that the water can flow through, which is the purpose. The other issue that you raise, I mean, if you have a big enough storm, it might be that you have no breakaway panels, you've got piers, and it's a lovely thing, and it may be an inconvenience, but when all the other houses go away because it's a big storm, and this one's still standing there because the water is able to run through, maybe your argument would be a little different.
Yeah, and I remember when I was first on the board, there was another Moses Road project that was going to be on pilings, but there were other issues with it.
Yes, there were a lot of other issues with that.
But Courtney's question to the people was there ever a house on this lot? And the people said, oh, yes, there was a big house on this lot. It filled the whole lot. And Courtney said, well, where is it? And he said, well, it was there before the storm of '38, and after the storm, it was completely gone. So this is one place in Falmouth. I know a lot of people are saying, my house hasn't had, and my house and my father and my grandfather said they never had a flood. Well, you can't predict where the effects of floods are going to be, but
Can't predict that a microburst is going to come down and rip off the roof of your house and leave your neighbors alone, so.
yeah, exactly.
You can't guarantee everything, and, I use the defensive line. To me, is to change how this system, has worked.
We know what you're asking.
All right,
I have a quick question.
Wait a second. No, the other,
I don't have any other questions.
yeah, Tommy.
Have these panels been designed yet, or are you waiting to see if they
You
pass
can
tonight?
address Mr. Collins if you would like to talk to
Okay.
him about
Yeah,
those.
I'm just curious whether they're hinged or fully breakaway panels.
Would you like Mr. Collins to address that, Tom?
Yeah, that's his
please.
question.
Michael Collins, the architect for this project, and the short answer is, yes, they are hinged. They are in process of design. I have two preliminary sketches that I'm happy to share with you that I've developed along with structural engineer John Queen, who's done a lot of a lot of work in Falmouth, as well as a number of breakaway walls.
Yeah. So do they have a rating for how much release force it would have?
They're designed to FEMA regs with finished nails at the sill.
Okay.
And dual acting hinge.
Okay, so they're designed to the FEMA specs.
Correct.
Okay.
And we looked at, prior to a solid breakaway panel, we have looked at again, FEMA compliant open lattice with 40% clear opening
Right.
as an option. We looked at flood vents
Yeah.
as an option, and we've settled on the breakaway as the most desirable in terms of security and for the issues that Barbara brought up. And to answer your other half of that first question, we are waiting for the final determination in terms of final design on that.
Okay.
But I'm happy to share these sketches if you'd like.
Okay, and what is your opinion about, I think what Barbara's saying is that there's gonna be some lapping, where it's maybe a gale and a moon tide, where it's not gonna break the panels, but it's gonna hold the beach in place, and,
Mr.
I mean,
Dunn could address the activity on that site. It is extremely windy all year round.
right, yeah.
The times that I've been there, it's been extremely windy. I've been there after a normal tide, and there's seaweed in the front yard.
Right.
So it's fairly regular that waves break over that, the riprap wall and travel to both sides of the house,
Right.
as opposed to,
But without enough force to activate the panel.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Tom?
This may be a question for you. A couple different observations. This is a redevelopment project. To what you had expressed up there, some might find it compelling. All right? So I am pretty sympathetic to a raise and rebuild. It's a pre-existing condition. It is a condition that's there, and it does function. Whether we agree on what it will function in the future, it functions that way now. It truly does. Is it a good way to function? Not so much. You know, that riprap is smooth. There's no energy absorption with that. The concrete that's out there, that was technology then. We wouldn't do that now. As I walked around that site, this is a unique place. The first time I was on this board, and there was discussion on the Inner Harbor area and such, I made a lot of friends. So, walking here, I noticed in here, you're gonna have containment of your roof runoff. Because right now, the downspouts that go from underneath the deck out to the concrete are not gonna be acceptable in the future. Your first floor deck is gonna be up. And it's slightly shorter than the existing deck. Your footings are gonna go through the concrete, because you're not gonna be able to just assume that that concrete is gonna be substantial enough to do that. You're gonna be down 56 inches for each one of those piers, and you're gonna be using a big foot. You know, you're gonna be opening up a fair amount of that. I'd like to know how many footings are gonna be in there.
There are 11 piers for the house.
That's the piers for the house.
Just for the piers for the house. For the
Yep.
deck, there are 5 more. I have to look at the plan to be sure.
Are they gonna be are they gonna be typical piers, like you're gonna be doing piles for the house, or are they gonna be smaller?
They will be smaller because the loads are smaller. However, we have soil testing being performed on the 4th,
Okay.
where we're going to make a determination of the depth of good material. Structural engineer is, I'm not going to say concerned, but wants to be sure that there isn't a layer of organic material that would discourage a
So
spread
you're just
footing.
gonna drive a pile, you're not gonna have a typical,
No, these are footinged piles.
okay.
And again, this detail is a typical, I will distribute this, I have multiple copies, of a preliminary design pending the final soil analysis, which is next week.
Okay.
So the depth of those footings and the size of those footings is going to be a function of the soil-bearing capacity of what we find. The depth will obviously be below frost, but also to take in consideration any scour. We are going back with a patio there so that we aren't going to be disrupting the concrete in that area on the water side of the dock, of the house towards the water. So that the material, the consistency of that surface will remain, so that because if, for example, my client were to put a lawn in there, there would be the potential to undermine the slabs on both sides.
Correct.
And
So when you put your piles in, you're not gonna go back with concrete up against the piles, you're gonna put a different stone
we're putting a concrete paver in.
concrete paver. Good to know. That's gonna have to be shown on the plan.
Where's the concrete paver?
When they come up,
Each of the,
each one of, as you come around the house, and the deck that you walk under now,
Yeah.
you're gonna be walking underneath another deck, but it's gonna be up higher,
Yeah.
and the piers that are there are gonna be
Yeah.
bigger. Where do you, that's what I wanna know is where, I'm glad you got to this, where that
Well, you were the
pavers are
one who
gonna
got to
start.
it.
Yeah.
It's delineated. There's so many lines on that plan, I apologize, but it is
And that's, we're
delineated.
gonna have to make that a little more, just so people understand it, say it verbally so that they can consume it.
Sure.
Where it starts, if you were at the riprap, you're coming in a couple feet, and then you're starting the concrete pavers, coming back with, after you put your footings in, and that's gonna go to the front wall of the structure,
Correct.
being the bigger piers that are carrying the other stuff.
Correct.
Then going forward, going towards the street, potentially, if they do not have breakaway panels, the concrete pavers, I'm assuming, would continue through, because you wouldn't have the surface that you have. You know, what's gonna be underneath there if you're gonna have storm panels?
Under the house,
Yes,
a slab.
slab.
I think it would be, I mean, bringing this up, I think it would be useful to have a diagram from here to the front of the house of what it looks like at slab level, and where those pilings are gonna be.
Yeah, I think it would be useful for the board to be able to take, again, for consumption, to understand it, and I'm probably more sympathetic to storm panels, because I believe they do perform a good function. I think that it's de minimis at best to say that anything that you're doing on this, with that wall of man-made structures that goes hither and yon, that I think the storm panels would work as intended, and outside of that, in a non-storm period, it'd be fine. I don't see that being an issue at all, to be totally honest. Getting past the storm panels and all this happiness right now.
Just one point. This, as I said, there are so many lines on these plans, and I know Barbara had separated them, but the area that is defined is drawn on this, and I actually have a copy with it in red, which I can leave with you, but we can also reissue it in red so that it is very clear from the, there's actually control joints in the concrete slab that exist, and we're going to those control joints to remove, and then we'll come back to it with our new concrete paver. So that, and that all happens within the Dunn's property lines.
Court.
Yeah, I'm sorry to jump in here, but I think it's important because we're talking about the pier system, and I'm confused about what it is we're dealing with here, because I'm reading the narrative and it says, "The new foundation will be reinforced concrete pier system that will be supported on a series of connected reinforced strip footings." Now, when I read that into it, I read ground beam. But I'm not hearing that that's what you are talking about, Tom. So, and if that's what's in the narrative, I guess at this point, I can't go any further with this project, and at least you can finish your presentation. But I want to see a cross-section of this thing structural, and I want a stamp by an engineer before
Well-
I'm willing to go any further.
And we would love to engage the engineer fully and engage and have him do full engineering design. However, the approval of the project is kind of pending that.
Well, yeah, and I understand, that's a
and I do have, as I said, I have-
I realize that's a catch-22.
I have some
I
preliminary-
mean, I have built houses in a very similar situation. And the only way that the thing could be built and be engineered properly was with a ground beam. It was reinforced, it was poured, it was 18 inches below whatever the grade was, and then the piers sat on top of it. That's what I'm reading the narrative tells me.
Correct. Strip footings,
So all I
Piers.
want to see is I want to know that that's going to work in this area. That's germane to the whole question of whether we'll approve it.
and it is in part depending on the soil bearing capacity.
So you got to do some homework.
We are in that process. We've engaged the company to do the borings and the soil analysis, which is happening next week. And as I said, the preliminary design of these footings is right here, and as well as the
I'm
preliminary
gonna,
design.
I'm gonna interrupt you just for a moment. The preliminary design for that is there. What I just looked at over the last week, and when I walked on the site, is this. Okay, that's the difference. I'm starting to, I got a couple more things, but let's get past that for right now, because the more we talk about it, the deeper this is sinking. And I really think that if we just pull the board, because we're getting hung up on something that I really don't want to get hung up on, all right? That was not my intent. One of the things in reading your methodology, I highlighted this, and I'm gonna see if we can make this a boilerplate condition. I like this a lot. Portable toilets, if any, which there will be, because you're gonna pull a building permit, will be secured so as to prevent their falling over due to weather or vandalism. Thank you. You have no idea what it's like to have to try to use that glorified cat box after somebody's done something stupid to it. Outside of crossing that hurdle with the beams, just so everybody understands, I know what you're saying, but I'd like to pass it on to the board. My question for the builder is, the site conditions here, I don't know who the builder is.
He's right there.
Okay. Site conditions here, you got a lot of neighbors, and this is gonna go into summer. You're gonna be loved. And, just site conditions, keeping stuff, I'm around there, I'm gonna give you an eyeball, you know, it's something. This is a very much a doable project. You know, we're crossing the Ts and dotting the Is and how we get there. That's it. This is not gonna not come together. It will, you know, and hopefully the homeowner will, even though it's been a burden at this point that he was unexpected, may he enjoy
Many, many years.
many moons, many tides, lots of seaweed and shells, and have this home his own. This is a high wind area, hence that anchoring down in the old porta potty. I've said enough.
Okay.
I'm done.
Russ?
You know, I kind of agree with Tom. I don't have a problem with the breakaway panels, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't know how far we get into aesthetics, but it does kind of make a little bit of a difference in our neighborhood.
Well, when we get into deliberation, you'll hear more about,
Okay, I need to, I guess, but like I say, I do not have a problem with breakaway panels, and I kind of agree with Tom's presentation, I guess.
Lori.
Well, in my opinion, this wasn't ready to come yet. There seems to be a lot of questions that need to be answered. And if we're not clear on construction methodology, I don't think I could vote on this project.
I have a question. For you? You have a question too? My question is, it could be very likely that you're gonna hit an organic layer. Does that mean you just have to go down further?
One option, the second option would be to use a helical pile instead of a spread footing, thus preliminary. I don't want to make a presentation of what this footing and foundation system is going to be until we have as much fact as we can. I can suggest what's happening above grade, and when I can clearly demarcate what's happening above grade. It is what is below grade that is unknown to all of us. So
I mean, we've had that was the same situation you had with the wall in Megansett.
same engineer, by the way. So he's familiar and capable, clearly. The breakaway wall panel, regardless of what happens below grade, is the bigger issue that we are trying to get some direction on. And
Well, when we have deliberation, we'll definitely give you some direction.
did I answer your question, though?
Yeah, no, you said one of the things is we think we might have an organic layer, and I'm thinking about what the situation is, and I think it's very likely you might have an organic layer.
It could be, and that's why normally on the Cape, we're blessed with miles of sand and beautiful soil bearing, but we want to be
But
sure in
that's all
this case.
filled in marsh area.
It's a marsh right
and it's
behind,
a-
exactly. So that's why we're taking this extra precaution. It was actually scheduled for tomorrow. Unfortunately, it got pushed off, so we expect to have the results of that and to be able to determine the strip footings at below grade. Regardless, the impact on the site is going to be significant, whether it's a helical pile system or a spread footing system.
Yeah,
Madam Chair?
yeah.
Yeah, coming back to this foundation thing, I realize that, you're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. You want to get direction from us. We're asking you for some more information. But really, basically, all I'm trying to do is be consistent with what we require in delicate situations where what you do with that foundation, how you construct it, how deep you go, whether you have to do dewatering in order to do it, all of that we need to know in order for us to be able to properly condition it. You see? We need to know what the impact of the work is. And that's why, where I'm sitting, why it's important to know what it is you're gonna build. And so, that's my point.
And I'm trying to get a clear picture of what impact the breakaway walls or no breakaway
No,
walls.
we're not talking breakaway walls.
not talking
Breakaway
about-
walls will be in
Let that one go
deliberation.
for now.
All right.
Let that go. I'm talking about, because the breakaway walls are being built
I'm gonna
above
ask-
grade, or they're not being built at all.
Madam Chair, if I
Well,
may?
So
okay.
the
It may affect
impact
my
of that
client's
is-
decision
The
to
impact
move.
of that,
It may affect my client's decision to move forward or not. That's.
right, but the
that's an
impact
issue.
of breakaway panels, yes or no, is a construction thing that goes on the site. That's a different set of conditioning than how much excavation is gonna be required for the foundation, how much dewatering is gonna be required. What's the impact of that? What are we conditioning? And we can't approve it if we don't know what it is we're conditioning. Thank you.
Talk about it. They do that, and then
I would just like to add, Courtney, that the narrative does address dewatering,
it does.
and it also addresses construction methodology, how the excavated soils will be handled and all of that. So we did
So all we want is the
We did
engineers
address
to
the
back it up.
generalities. What we're trying to do is to fine tune it, because we recently had a job, which will remain nameless, where perk tests were done on the property, and boring was done, actually 2 perk tests, and when they went to excavate for the footings for this pile foundation, they hit some peat that never showed up beforehand, so you can't always predict. We could design for peat being there or for not peat being there, and, you know, to go, you don't know until you actually start doing the work.
Barbara, I certainly understand that.
All
And
right.
if it meant a meaningful change in the scope of work, we'd expect you to come
Well, that's-
back and ask for an
that's
amendment.
right.
That's fair enough. But, you know, at the same time, this, as part of your process of moving forward, you know, you've got to do your homework more and,
But I
you
believe
know,
that we
give
did
us
follow
more
the type
certainty,
of
not just,
foundation.
well, we think we're going to do this.
Well, no, if you-
I
We
mean,
didn't say that
That's
in the
not,
hearing.
what we require more information
But
when we're in this thing. That's all I'm saying.
And I
Bob.
beg to
You
differ
don't want-
respectfully.
You want to fight me on it? Fine.
I'm
Well,
not fighting, I'm just
Courtney.
saying that I think we did.
I would respectfully disagree, not fight. It's just that we've proposed the worst-case scenario of spread footings, stripped spread footings in the narrative. If we find peat, we'll do helical piles that will be less invasive to the site.
And we'd have to come back and talk to you about it.
And if I may, Madam Chair?
Couldn't we condition that?
Through the chair, if I may. They do address dewatering in the narrative.
No, I know it's mentioned.
Yeah, I would have preferred to see this, I'm gonna be blunt with you. I would have preferred to see this after you had the borings and you had something concrete, no pun intended, of that methodology. That gap is what is tenuous, right? It's not a no, it's a what. And that's where the rub is. Understand, it is not a no, not for the construction of the home. And if it's the helical piles versus the strip footing, instead of coming back in for an amendment or something else, maybe you just readjust it. Get your ducks in a row now, so that we're not approving what we think, and then all of a sudden you're coming back for an amendment. Maybe if you just take this, I know it's a little bit of a delay, but get that information ahead, make a decision on it. And I know that, I'm very confident that your skill set would allow you to adapt those piers, whether we had storm panels or not. I know that there's a certain way that you could preliminarily draw those up so that they would be accepting of storm panels regardless, because that band, that footprint is going to be that size. And those piers have to be within tolerances of that. Even if there's panels, they still have to do what they do. So, you know, I think.
This is the longest I think I've ever been before this board for any one project. I would just like to reiterate something that you may or may not have heard Mike say a few minutes ago. The reason that we haven't done the items that you're asking us now to come back with, which we will, with the client's permission, is that if ultimately the breakaway panel aspect of the project is not going to be approved, then the client doesn't want to do the project at all. So he's looking to, actually to get some direction, rather than go and spend thousands upon thousands of dollars for a project that he's not going to ever do. That was why the focus was put on that.
And I appreciate that. And that being said, and being put on the table, if you wanted to poll this board right now on the impression of.
No.
I didn't say
You said if you wanted to
if,
pull the ball.
if they wanted to. I don't think that's going to happen, was the next part of my sentence, okay?
I
don't-
asked, and the client says no, so you don't even have to throw it out there.
Okay. I don't want to be not consistent. Those are things that we take up in deliberation. The project is presented to us, and we do that in deliberation. That's how that is done. That's just the way it is.
Jen, you have a question?
I have a question on dewatering part. How big of a dumpster is it? Like, it's just a typical size dumpster that you would use for your dewatering?
I think what's going to happen is when we do the test borings, we're going to know where groundwater is, we're going to have a sense of volume, and we could do, you know, a 30-yard dumpster.
Yeah.
We've done it sometimes in the back of pickup trucks, that can be moved onto the site.
My question is, do you have enough room on there, on that site to store one of those?
They're gonna have to have a dumpster there all the time anyways.
So do you have enough room for that dumpster and your dewatering dumpster?
Well, the
Because
demo will be
those-
done first.
You're dealing with a lot that's like this big.
The demo will be done first,
Right.
and the dumpster will be empty. So now all we're gonna have is a bare lot, and the excavation will begin
Wow.
to do the footing. So the only thing that'll be coming and going is the concrete truck and the form guy. So that dumpster can be in the same spot.
And you have in your thing that, you know, a slow controlled recharge.
Mhm.
That entire area over there, as you just said, is concrete. Where's the water going?
Well, because the driveway will be ripped up.
Okay.
All of that driveway's
All
gonna
that
be
water
ripped up
has
because it's
to
gonna be smaller.
contained on site.
That's indeed right.
My department does not want to get a call that has, you know, watering happening, and I've got water running up and down Moses Road.
There'll be wattles or stake straw bales or whatever all along
As soon as
Moses
that
Road.
happens, you've got to be able to control water.
I don't want the
Especially
call.
this time you-
Yes,
We'll all
and you
be
would
on
be
there.
the next one.
I would be the next one being called, and I don't
Yes.
wanna get that call.
Okay, all right, so I'm just, we're clear then.
Yep, very clear.
Okay, excellent.
And the dewatering, I've actually pumped it. If I ended up not being able to, I've pumped it out. I've had it, a pump truck there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just on,
if
just if
worse
it
comes
starts
to
getting
worse.
worse to worse, just,
We've even talked about doing it on a low tide cycle because obviously it's gonna be tidally influenced. And so there'll be some timing and some,
absolutely.
Would you like to continue?
well,
I think the answer is yes.
I guess the answer is yes. To the next available hearing, please.
That would be the,
2 weeks.
second.
Oh, Michael's out of town on the 12th.
They'll go to the audience in just a moment.
That would be the 19th?
All right, the 19th.
The 19th, yes?
Oh, excuse me.
Are we okay?
No, I'm not.
Sit down, please.
I have back issues sometimes.
I just saw that.
I stood too long.
Shame on us.
Are you okay now?
Yeah.
Okay.
On behalf of the
I need a
applicant,
cigarette, that's all.
I'd like to put a motion for a continuance.
Have a second?
Second.
Before we vote, I think,
I know.
okay.
I'm not going to vote, but I want to get the date.
It would be
You have the
the 19th,
date?
February 19th.
Okay, there's a motion and second to continue this to February 19th. Are there any other questions on the board? Are there any questions from the audience? Yes.
We just need to go up there. Yes, please.
My name is Frances Catino. This is Michael Childs, and I live at 159 Silver Beach Ave. I'm a direct abutter. I live next door to the property that's being described. I want to thank the members of the Falmouth Conservation Commission for giving me the opportunity to voice my concerns as an abutter to 25 Moses Road. I am vehemently opposed to the proposal, vehemently. Our family moved to Silver Beach in 1952. In 1960, my grandfather purchased our home at 159 Silver Beach Ave. We're deeply rooted in the community, and the fifth generation continues to enjoy our home. My first objection is the request to relocate the fence. Let me emphasize, it is our fence that they seek to relocate. We assume that they are requesting a relocation based on a recent survey. The marker on Moses Road is correct. It's aligned with the deed. The marker on the beach side is a matter of inches. And you know that's significant in a home that's been there since '39. However, there is a middle marker that is clearly in error and well within our property and where lattice work has stood from 1939 to 1991, and a fence from 1991 to the present. I want to emphasize to you that that is an erroneous marking. And once again, I want to emphasize that it is our fence. Next, I'm trying to understand why 25 Moses Road is coming forth with the request to tear down the existing structure to build a new one. Now,
Did you understand the explanation?
I did, but being neighbors, and we live very close, it was the joke of the beach, how many walls they took down internally. And I think that a major reason for part of their roof coming off in the microburst was that it was no longer tied down properly. And they put in so many windows and sliding doors that there wasn't the structure that once stood there with a wall.
Can I show you some pictures from the new Silver Beach book?
If they
So,
do,
and I'll just keep going, because
yeah, if you
Yeah.
submit something, it has to stay with us, that's the only thing.
then maybe we
Uh,
take
We
a,
could get copies of it.
We'll do a copy.
Copies in our
Okay.
office
That would be
Thank
awesome.
you.
tomorrow and
Okay.
submit them into the record then.
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
The point being that there was never a deck on the ocean side of that structure.
Okay.
Until
If you
after
could- if
Hurricane
you-
Bob.
If you could submit those pictures.
Right.
And the fact is, how it got to the point that it is today with what they're asking us to do.
Right.
That has to do with the building department. It doesn't have to do with us.
Understand.
If
but-
it went through the building department.
Well, I mean,
Okay.
from this point on,
Okay,
Understand.
So
But
you-
one of the major things I've heard
sir,
today,
you have to, oh, you.
In the family.
you introduced- Right.
one of the major things I've heard today is a hardship request. That as a result of the microburst, there's been a hardship. And Francis's point, I believe, is that they opened up the existing structure, which was a self-contained porch, to put a bank of windows on the ocean side and tore down walls within that point, that is a direct cause. Now, I'm not a structural engineer, but it would seem to us that that was a direct cause of the roof lifting up, which has caused this unfortunate occurrence.
Right, so we understand your point.
okay.
Yeah.
So, in simple terms, we specifically feel that we got burned when the previous owner put up a deck 10 feet in the direction towards the ocean, and then not only the width of the house, but wrapping around the house, at a time when this body, the Conservation Commission, was so committed to making sure that no structure was built that didn't replicate what had been there prior to the storm. In fact, our neighbors on the other side, the Horns on Silver Beach Ave, lost their steps, not even on the ocean side, on the lifeguard tower side. And they weren't allowed by this body to rebuild their steps until I gave them pictures of their home, which showed that, from the 30s all the way up to 91. So that's the context that I come to this body with, that they've already built a deck of questionable legality with drains that drain down to the beach, okay? You can't even stand up under the deck. It's one of these. Okay, so that is the context in which we come here, and we feel that, again, something will be done that doesn't align with the spirit of the community. Especially now, I question the legality of the first deck, and I'm hearing that there's going to be a secondary deck on top of it, when I say that first deck shouldn't have ever been there, and it's the dock of the beach. So,
Can I mention about the blow-hole walls?
sure.
Okay. The existing structure that was there, or is there, I should say, and I'm not a structural engineer, and I don't know about blow-up walls and all that sort of stuff, but a lot of the houses, not Francis's, but a lot of the houses down on the beach are made with the type of walls that typically blow out. And there are pictures from the 44 hurricane and in Bob of 91 of that particular 25 Moses Road structure with the walls blown out. It was made that way. The garage in the front was made not to be occupied. I don't know if I believe they advertised when they did the real estate listing as a bedroom down there or something, I don't know. But it was made that way originally, with the walls that would blow out. That was the purpose of it, that was the way it was designed, and the roof structure was all tied into that whole unit being a enclosed porch and a blowout basement.
And I just wanted to piggyback on that. The proposed structure is 4 bedrooms. Timmy Noonan's house was 3 bedrooms. The bedroom off the kitchen, and they took down the walls to make an eat-in kitchen. That bedroom was never a bedroom. And the storage room in the basement was part of a breakaway system with double garages. And I can remember the hurricanes. Timmy would have his sailboat in the garage, and the water would come through, and the boat would go through the breakaway. So to characterize that downstairs room, a storage room, whether or not it has a closet as a bedroom, is erroneous. And I know that the house took 3 years to sell because there was quite a discrepancy between what the realtor was characterizing the number of bedrooms, and when people got in there, they were grossly disappointed that there were in fact 3 bedrooms.
Can I suggest that it's really important for a record
Yep.
to have stuff in writing? So can I suggest that you come in and make,
I will.
make some copies of the pictures, and then put some narrative, what you've said as narrative, because it's for the record, it's really important.
Understood.
Even though there's a tape of this.
Understand. And we just got notice of this meeting recently,
Right.
so.
Yeah, no, I'm
See,
saying,
and I don't-
I understand, sometimes people don't have it when they come, but if you do,
And I don't feel, it's like a California mentality to raise a home and to build it up, and I am not in agreement with anyone who says that this will blend in the neighborhood. It most certainly will not. It will tower. It'll block the sun. And you throw 2 decks on that, and already their first deck, and I would charge that it was an illegal deck.
but
Okay,
remember
I
that.
know, but your conservation.
We're
Commissioner,
conservation.
We're moving forward. It interferes with the integrity of the beach community.
So,
There's a question, but maybe it's not to us.
Just a comment.
Okay.
The reason the house has to be so tall is because it needs to meet specific building code requirements and requirements within this commission's regulations. That first floor elevation has to be raised 2 feet above the flood elevation. So that's why that first floor has to be 22 feet. It's a requirement. There's no way around that requirement.
but aren't,
Second, as far as the deck goes, I'll be happy to take a later statement in these pictures, but that deck was permitted in 1992. It was a permitted deck. It did come before this board. I'm not quite sure if you received notice back then. There was a notice of a requirement sent out. I just would have to cross-reference the numbers on your parcel with the numbers that were sent back in 92. I wasn't here back then. I was much younger, so I would have to do some cross-referencing. But the deck on the seaward side of the house was properly permitted, okay?
okay, can I just,
And I can give you that information, and you can provide whatever pictures or anything you'd like.
can I just ask a question? Your first statement about that it has to be that way
Yes.
is based upon a premise, a hardship premise.
No,
that
no,
the
no.
house
No,
has
no,
to
no,
be
no.
rebuilt,
No,
right?
people are allowed,
Based on 2
people
separate
are allowed to raise and rebuild and in the footprint. right?
I think, Madam Chairman.
Why does it
raise-
have to be
I
raised
I
and
can,
rebuilt?
I can, if I may,
That's the
Madam
question.
Chair?
I think raise and raise are.
Torn down.
Okay,
Changed.
yeah.
Torn down.
Why,
It's
when this
allowed to be,
happens, any,
people are allowed to tear down and rebuild a house. People would be allowed to, in any case, in this case, allegedly, it's because they had extra work that had to be done. But he would be allowed to come in and ask to have that house taken down and put up a new house. He's allowed to do that.
Could I ask a
And the
question?
new house would have to have a base flood elevation 2 feet. I mean,
I
an
understand the
elevation
base.
2 feet above the base flood
I
elevation.
understand the base elevation. I understand what you're saying. But I'm really concerned about how high the house is going to end up. So if a new house were built, I'd be more comfortable with it not exceeding how high it is now.
Well, the height-
currently.
That's a zoning.
The height
issue.
is zoning, it's a
it's
zoning
also-
issue, it's not a
if I may,
conservation issue.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
They worked on the home. They spent X amount of money with a building permit. And that building permit is issued, there's a valuation of the home. The building permit takes up X amount of that valuation. You reach a threshold on the valuation of the home and what the building project is gonna cost. If tips on a scale, I don't wanna be quoted, there's a tipping point. When all of a sudden, now you have to meet all the performance standards of the building code. You're not just redoing a wall with windows and doing it to code, you're doing the entire structure. And that's when the elevation, if you come in beforehand and just come in, I bought the house, I'm tearing it down, that's one way of doing it. Other ways, somebody just wants to redo the structure, all of a sudden they hit more than what they anticipated, however they got there, whether it was an unfortunate series of events or whatever. That tipping point was met, and now any project that they want to continue with has to meet, the entire structure has to come up. And that would be with anybody along that whole line. That's what's going to happen. Eventually, whether you take little bites and you keep the structure small and you budget every year and you do certain things, but if you have a catastrophic event, and all of a sudden you're at that tipping point, you're mandated to elevate, and that, a whole bunch of happiness.
I have a question. How about the people across the street from this house with the new house blocking ocean views? What group is that?
Zoning,
That'd be-
That's what?
zoning.
In
Zoning.
the house has to stay underneath a certain height, I believe, what do you guys?
35
know?
feet.
35 feet.
I'm not the zoning administrator, I don't know those regulations.
35 feet from the ground?
From average property.
From average, good, so the house cannot exceed 35 feet in height without, I'm gonna go out on it, without a special permit?
Yeah, without a variance, and we're not going for a variance. Our
Okay.
house is only 35 feet.
Okay, so I mean, that house can't exceed a certain height. So they have to meet that first floor elevation, and then that 35 feet is on that, so.
Okay.
I don't know if this would trigger, and they're saying no, that it doesn't, at this point, the way it's designed, trigger a special permit from the zoning board of appeals.
Okay. And I just want to circle back to the fence piece. I don't want them coming on our property and taking down our fence. The fence has been there since 1939, after the 38 hurricane. And perhaps they don't know it's not their fence, but we have talked to them about that.
And I think
And
that's
we've
what the
maintained
avenue
it
you're gonna.
since 1960.
Are they?
Madam Chair.
Yeah, are these plans stamped?
Robert, it was been verified by surveyor.
Thank you.
I have Jack's stamp on them, I don't have the
These-
surveying stamp on it, so for the 19th. He signed it as a PE, so, Jack's a PLS too, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, just have to sign the surveying stamp, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna go on the property boundary that's presented to us by a professional and surveyor, so he's showing that.
As opposed to a deed?
Yes,
Would-
This is, all
This
we
is
can
it.
do,
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
asking.
all we
Yep.
can do
yes.
Take the
is
information that's
take the
presented.
information, and it has to be certified by a professional land surveyor. and that's what we go by.
Okay.
If it's incorrect,
Yeah.
then you have to question it, but it's not in front of this board.
Okay, so could we forward our own land surveyor in the deed as well?
If-
I truly
I'm-
believe
To
that it's
us?
an erroneous pin, or however
I think the
you
best
describe
way
it.
is if you can, the
Work with your
engine,
neighbor.
yeah, I think the engine, the engine,
Yes, you can
just,
can
you're
come
gonna have
up.
to
You
identify
have to
yourself.
come up and identify.
Hi.
Hi, Neil Dunn. Nice to meet you. So my name is Neil Dunn. I'm the owner of 25 Moses Road. I've had 3 surveys done on the property. One was done originally with the mortgage, one was done at easement, which is with my neighbor, the Noonans, and one was done in preparation, and all 3 of them have shown that the fence is actually sitting on our property. I'm not trying to grab anybody's fence. I mean, that's not a big issue for me, although I would like to utilize my property, and for some of the setbacks, which will be a conversation with zoning, we would need to use the full width of our property. And some of the other items that were mentioned, just for clarification, which I just think is important, I did replace windows. I did not add windows. I did not put in any sliding glass doors. I did not do anything of that sort. Any pictures that are from 1944, in my mind, have no bearing to a property that would exist that I bought in 2012. So I did not add any new windows to the structure. I replaced the windows, simply, honestly, because they were all leaking, and they were old. And so I put in new windows, which I think any homeowner would do. As far as the interior walls that were taken down, on the side of the home where the roof ripped off, no walls over there were touched at all, including the ceiling structure, or any of the tie-ins, or any of that. So, what is hearsay for people who have not necessarily been in my property, none of that was touched, and everything was engineered and worked through building permit and inspector. So I just wanted to say those things in terms of just clarifying some of the statements that were made. Obviously, I'm just trying to make sure that the right information is presented and heard by the board.
Okay, and
Thank
that's
you.
fine, and if you have information to give us in writing, we'd appreciate it, and you put it in the record.
We'll forward.
Okay.
Yep. We can forward it to us, you can come down and present those pictures, we'll take anything you have and back.
Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask you one question?
Yeah.
Can I ask you one question?
Sure.
This house, their rights are to tear down their house and build a new one if they choose, and then bring it up to code. Just in your opinion, in this neighborhood, what would look better, to have that house sitting up on open pilings, or to have it with walls closed in?
Can we see the elevation, the pictorial?
We don't.
My big concern is the height of the house and the impact on the community.
Would
But
you
I'm
re-
still digesting that information from you.
Okay.
Well, you can come back if you have an opinion in 2 weeks.
I'll come back with the association, because I'm
Right.
sure other people want to weigh in on it.
That's a rough sketch, that's just something that, if you wanna take it to the seat and look at it for right now, you may. and then
Okay.
We'll just bring it back. There's one other gentleman in the audience
Is
as
that
well.
okay?
That would be the house here, from the street to.
Well, I see that they've taken down our fence in this picture.
Well, it's just a
This is
drawing,
just a
it's not, it's just a drawing.
sketch.
It's a rough sketch, it's just something that gives a little bit of a visual, that's all it is.
Okay. It's a little hard when when people move in.
Absolutely.
You're familiar with Silver Beach.
Absolutely.
People have lived there for 5 generations. Sometimes people come in, change the whole thing, and they're gone in another year. So,
Well-
and I know you know that, so that's a little bit of what we're feeling as well.
Right.
And I'm sure there will be stress on the other side, because there's even less space between those 2 houses, because they were brothers who lived there.
Okay,
Okay, and
So-
okay.
thank you.
I just have a question. You mentioned
Wait,
threshold.
yeah. No, you can ask,
Yeah,
just
go to
gotta
the
walk-
you can
microphone.
ask your question, you have to tell us who you are. And you have to speak nice and clearly into the microphone.
What was the last name, please?
Malinowski.
Thank you.
My family has a house nearby. I just have a general question. You mentioned a threshold. Is that dictated by the microburst or improvements in the microburst? And-
It's just,
that's
it's
a
any
general
building.
threshold.
Yeah, it's a general
Yeah, so
threshold.
it's up to the owner to make that decision.
It's
Well,
up to
no.
the building,
It's up to the building department.
Deem it 50% destroyed by the
Right,
microburst.
the valuation of your house, and if you go
That's
over,
what you have to,
if it's the 50%.
yeah, and it's not just
Just want to make that clear.
here, it's anywhere.
Houses in the neighborhood.
Right.
You
Absolutely.
hit that threshold, the structures are coming down and they're being built to code.
Can I just say one thing, Madam Chairman? I'd like to just say one quick thing to the neighbors. Mr. Dunn does not want to do this. Mr. Dunn would like to keep that house exactly as it is. So this is not something he's choosing to do. It is something he has no choice. I just want to make that very clear.
Right, we understand that.
Can I just
May-
ask one question?
Wait, no, you
One
can't,
sec.
not yet.
My name's Jordan Race, I'm a project manager at Fraser Construction. I met Mr. Dunn in July, and I took a call on a Saturday, going out of the office at noon. I did not want to pick up the phone, but I picked it up. And I talked to him, I went down there, and in this nice newly renovated house, on the inside, painted, brand new sheetrock, all that, windows replaced, there was water coming through the smoke detectors in the basement. So we had big issues. The whole 50% threshold had nothing to do with Neil Dunn. It had nothing to do with money he was looking to spend. It had to do with money he had already spent versus the money that the insurance company was gonna cover for damage to the house. That alone put him like $100,000 over what he could have spent in any calendar year. And the permit was not closed out yet. It is still not closed out. So that calendar year extends all the way through till that permit closes out. He can't spend the money. So the house either sits as it is effectively, you know, and you're asking someone who just paid $900,000 for a house to wait 2 years before he ever gets to use the house simply because, you know, his neighbors aren't happy about it. And believe me, I have a vested interest in keeping you happy. I have to work there during the summer. And the longer we delay this project, the more this project extends into the summer, possibly throughout the whole summer. Currently, we're looking to be done in July. But the more we get pushed back, the longer we're gonna be down there, the longer the neighborhood's gonna be disturbed. It's gonna happen in one form or another. We're trying to make the best possible case out of the worst possible situation. And again, like Barbara said, Neil doesn't wanna pay $70,000 for a foundation that's concrete that comes up out of the ground, you know? I mean, he's gonna spend a ton of money out of pocket to do what he thinks is best for the neighborhood, not what he thinks is best for himself, you know, and we've tossed this back and forth a lot, and he's talked about walking away from that house. But he truly is someone who cares about the community that he moved into and understood that he was moving into a community that enjoyed lasting members. And that's why he wants to do the work that he's gonna do. And that is very important to him, and he's been nothing but sincere about that the entire time that I've known him.
Okay, I don't think this is getting us any further, but I am going to make one more statement. I'm sorry that you have to do this, but all of us are going to have to realize that these storms, increased sea level, is going to cause more challenges along the coast. Whatever money you're putting into this, it's going to be a lot better having it up so any storm can pass underneath you. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table, right, Susan? For a continuance to February 19th? Yep. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll see you all again in a couple of weeks.
Don't forget your boards.
Okay, those of you who are here for this, please leave. If you want to have a neighborhood discussion, go all the way down to the main hall. Paul and Margot Lafferty, 50 Wacoit Landing Road, Wacoit, for permission to raise, R-A-Z-E, existing dwelling and construct a 4-bedroom house with attached garage, enclosed porch, stairway with landing, install a new Title V sewage disposal system, driveway, 2-inch water service line, native trees and shrubs, utilities, dry wells, remove and relocate the existing coastal bank deck and stairs, and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Mike. This one I would have really liked to have seen the trees marked and where the house was going to be.
We
I
can
had to
still,
use my imagination.
well, I appreciate your understanding on the staking with the weather. For the record, my name is Michael Borselli. I represent the applicant Paul Lafferty. And this is a project to raise and reconstruct a single-family dwelling, but thankfully it's not in a velocity zone. It's not even in a flood zone, but it's adjacent to a flood zone. And the Laffertys have owned this property for several decades. They grew up here. It was their summer retreat, their summer cottage when they were younger. And one of Mr. Lafferty, one of a few siblings, has taken on the property and decided to apply for and hopefully get permits to build a retirement home on the lot that his family's enjoyed for such a long time. I received an email today from staff at 1 o'clock from Mark Kasperzik, and I read through it, and there were a lot of thoughtful questions and concerns that I haven't had a chance to respond to for tonight. I also had a conversation with Jen about the staff report, and everything in the staff report I think is easy to address and respond to, but I'm going to choose not to go through those items one by one tonight. I would prefer to meet with staff and go through them and then submit revised plans as necessary after that meeting. But I did want to present the project and hopefully get
any
feedback.
Yep.
So the project is a proposal to tear down an existing cottage that is right on the precipice, if you will, of an existing riprap seawall. And the lot measures approximately 1/2 acre, 23,000 plus or minus square feet. It has frontage on Wacoit Bay, which is land under the ocean. There's a strip of salt marsh, a small beach, some dune area on the coastal bank, which in this case is a riprap. The lot is pretty naturalized since it was a summer cottage. There's no driveway per se. They drive onto the property and meander through the trees and park their cars with no real organized, in no real organized fashion. And they've used it as cottages typically use. The project that we're proposing is to demolish that cottage and reconstruct a different house in its place that is year-round, meets all building code standards, is you know, a more comfortable year-round home. In rebuilding the house, they're proposing to move the house back away from the riprap. There's one projection on the house. This is a screened-in porch, a screen porch, which is, they have a screen porch in the cottage, and it's sort of a nostalgic thing. They want to continue to have the screen porch, which is off the main body of the house. And that will be supported by sonotubes and elevated above the ground along with the rest of the house. The topography on the lot is such that it gently slopes from the street to the riprap, and it lends itself to being a walkout style home. So the grading has been designed to, you know, keep that in mind, so that the lower level would be at walkout on the water side, which is similar to what the cottage is now. And the main body of the house is this larger rectangle. Then there's a connection from the house to a garage, which would be closer to the street. And then there would be a driveway. So the garage itself and the driveway are actually outside your jurisdiction. There, I've noted on the plan the A and B zone boundaries from the various wetland resources that are of note in this case. And the two that are of most note are the 100-foot no disturbance zone to the salt marsh, which is shown on the plan in this location. And then there's a 50-foot no disturbance zone A from the top of the bank, and then a 50-foot outer buffer zone B from the top of the bank. In doing the calculations and design of the house, we've done a survey of all of the trees on the lot. The tree is thickly wooded, so it's virtually impossible to do any significant redevelopment of a home that's bigger than a small cottage without some trees being impacted. And we took that into account when we offered the tree mitigation. I'll get to that in a minute. We also calculated, to demonstrate to you, the required mitigation planting in accordance with FWR 10.18 for the various increases or decreases of impervious surfaces. And those are itemized on the plan. In this case, there is actually a decrease of impervious surfaces in the Zone A. And it's a modest decrease, but it is a decrease. But there is alternatively an increase in the Zone B. That is also really relatively modest, but it is an increase. When you run through the tabulation of impervious surface calculations, the net result is that there is a requirement for mitigation planting in the amount of 478 square feet. And that is because of the increase of impervious surface in the outer buffer zone B, after you take into account a credit for the deduction because of the decrease in the no disturbance zone A. So if that doesn't confuse you, I'll be surprised, but I'm happy to clarify it if
I understood it.
You understood it? Thank you. I alluded to the tree mitigation. So we've noted on the plan the tree mitigation calculations. We did everything we could to minimize tree removal. However, we're proposing to remove 9 trees. And they vary in caliper inches, but the total caliper inches is 99 inches. Your regulations have a broad range of tree mitigation, and it goes from a 1-to-1 ratio of a single tree replacement for a single tree removed. That's your lowest, the low side of the range, to a higher, or the upside of the range being equal caliper inches for caliper inches removed. We do not believe that that is possible to provide the caliper inch for caliper inch ratio. And your regulations, I think, recognize that for wooded lots. And there's provisions in the regulations about wooded lots having a little bit of a different viewpoint when applying this regulation, because it is really difficult to change anything on a heavily wooded lot without, of course, having to remove some trees. So in recognition of that, I think that, in my opinion, in reading the regulations, that you can provide alternate mitigation planting. Instead of trees, provide more shrub layer mitigation to offset the additional trees that you're cutting. Now, I will point out that we are proposing to give back a 1-to-1 ratio of trees, but we're not
The
able-
minimum.
But we're not able to give back.
See where I'm going?
We're not able to give back the actual caliper per caliper mitigation.
Caliper inch.
Yes. So the actual number of trees we're proposing is 9 for the 9 removed. The actual caliper inches that we're proposing is 27 for the 99 that we're removing. But in addition, we're proposing to provide additional shrub layer mitigation in an amount of an additional 250 square feet of mitigation shrub layer planting over what would be allowed. And
What would be required?
what would be required, thank you. and I'm sure we'll have some conversations about that. What else can I tell you about the project? The current cottage is served by a cesspool, and that's located in this location. It's less than 20 feet to the top of that riprap. Granted, it's a seasonal house, and this will be a year-round house, but this old cesspool will be pumped dry, filled with sand, and abandoned in place. And a new septic system is shown and has been designed to make it so that it's in excess of 100 feet. The leaching facility is in excess of 100 feet from the top of the coastal bank. We're proposing some dry wells for the roof runoff. We're asking permission to relocate, rebuild, and slightly relocate the existing access stairs to the beach.
Makes sense.
We've shown the limit of work on the plan, which wraps right around and as close as possible to the existing cottage to allow for its demolition. I think that sums things up, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Jen?
Hey, man, Mike, we need to go through this because you're a buffer zone, you're a buffer zone, might be shifted a bit. So we'll meet.
Sure.
And we'll go point by point.
Mm-hmm.
The board should have a copy of it, so we can address extending the limit of work. The resource areas, you said it's a walkout, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that back wall where the steps are, right, so that's underneath is gonna have a slider underneath that little bump out point, correct?
I don't know that they've gotten to the actual specifics on that design, but there will be access from the basement level or the walkout level, if you will, out. But I believe it was limited to over here. I believe that this is just a
It slopes up that.
lattice enclosed.
No. My question is, are you gonna have a patio?
No.
Anything walking out, they're just gonna walk out onto grass, dirt?
Yes, I will double check with them,
Double check.
and if there is any concept
And I don't
for,
think sometimes when people are designing their houses, they think of things like that.
Sure.
And I've run into an issue like that on other projects where your clients are just, the architect, beautiful designed house, with the little things they don't think about.
I understand.
As Mark noted in his staff report, AC pads, things like that, that may modify those things. So if you could double check with your clients to see what their desire is outside of that,
Outdoor shower?
outdoor shower.
A rinsing station?
Yeah,
Correct.
that's not on there, or what the desired surface is gonna be when they open that door.
Yeah,
If
understood,
they don't think
understood.
they're gonna wanna step in.
I will check with them about those,
Yeah, so,
those
and,
elements.
cause that might trigger it.
Mhm.
So, other than that, Madam Chairman, I think, all the staff's concerns I can address with Mr. Borselli at a meeting.
And you can,
revise his plans
you'll be able to
accordingly.
address my concerns too, once
Yes.
I give them to Mike.
And I'm sure he will address our concerns accordingly.
Court,
No questions.
Tommy?
Just for me to recap real quick, it's coming back away from the resource. The septic is moving back, obviously, significantly. The big issue is you can't get enough caliper inches on the tree to go inch for inch.
Well, I guess that's up to interpretation, but
Okay.
we're not
I'd
able.
like to see you be a little more generous and put some oaks back, oaks or tupelos, as opposed to just, I mean, I like cedars, but I'd like to see some other trees there too. And
those
there's
dri-
plenty of room now that you've moved the house back.
And those are new dry wells?
Yes, there's a proposal to put dry wells around the entire new structure for runoff.
Okay, that's it, thank you.
Great to see the cesspool getting out of there. Moving it back, mirroring what Tom just said. The other thing I noticed on here, when I was walking through, I came in, it was all staked when I got there. The,
Later in the day.
yeah, there's trails, I don't know what they are. They're rodent trails that crisscross that entire site. I must have spent a half hour just, I don't know what animal it is. It goes beneath the snow
Squirrels?
layer? No. Voles or some such little thing. Yeah, they were just absolutely, I have never been on a site that has had that much stuff going all the way across it. I'm glad you moved the stairs. I think it'll function better there, because I like seeing something like this. It's pretty broad, the old structure, because it's right up on the bank and such. And when people do this and they redevelop and they make it linear, you're actually confining the activities of the house, and it becomes less, it's not as wide to run around things, and when you bring the stairs closer, you're helping create a buffer on that side. You're no longer, I think that was a good move to bring that closer to the structure, to the house. That's it.
No questions?
Lori?
Just a comment, I think it's a beneficial project.
Yeah, it'll be good. I have a question.
You do?
Yes. You already know my tree concern. And that is, that really, when I went up to the edge of the coastal bank, they have a kind of a net. Probably they had kids at one point and they didn't want them falling
They
over.
have some grandchildren, or some kids in the family.
It's a net. It has a net all the way
Yeah,
along.
it's a mesh.
No, I get that.
It's a bowl net.
A bowl net.
Very good.
But I would think if they're gonna build a new house, that they could come up with something that's more attractive, but still serve the same function. And maybe they could have some plants just along, they could keep them low, but along the base, additional plants, just to keep people, because there's a reason they have it.
Maybe a rail fence.
Yeah, I mean, if that weren't there, you'd just walk right out. A late night party,
Yeah, some nice beach rows along the top of that, little thorns that keeps kids right out of them, from falling right over that bank.
I won't suggest that you put poison ivy in there.
No, I know you won't.
No, but I'm sure with all that they're doing to this site, they're gonna want that, they want it's a beautiful view looking out from there. So, not that that's gonna change, it's not gonna change anything, you're still gonna have a fence along the top,
Sure, understood.
so,
I think we can come up with something that'll be appropriate.
yeah. 2 weeks? Do we have room in 2 weeks? We know Mike's gonna be here in 2 weeks. Can you get it done?
I can get it done,
I don't know if I can, Mike, I won't be able to do it until early next week.
Is there a meeting 3 weeks from now?
Yeah,
Yeah, the 19th.
We can go
The
for the third
19th?
week, yeah.
yeah, let's do the,
Because I'm not in the office Friday, and I can't do tomorrow, so if I'm pushing you out from Monday,
Yeah, that's
go
fine.
through everything, if you can get the plan by Wednesday, that's fine.
Yeah, I'd like to meet and then understand everything,
And then you need to talk to the client.
talk to my client, and another week isn't gonna make a
Okay.
big difference.
Okay, 19th.
okay.
On behalf of the applicant, I'd like to make a motion to continue this to February 19th.
Second?
Thanks, Mike.
Any other questions? Any questions from the audience? Okay, motion on the table is to continue to February 19th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mike, can you tell tomorrow, we'll schedule something
Okay.
either Monday or Tuesday for you?
Continued request for hearings under a notice of intent. Cape Codder Condominium Trust, 1018 and 28 Cape Codder Road, for permission to conduct invasive species management by removing non-native and invasive species and replanting area with native shrubs and grasses. Well, and I'm gonna show Russell how to do the quorum.
I need to excuse myself.
Lori, Betsy, Tom, Tommy, and Court. So basically, everybody but Russell.
Jen, you have any comments?
No, I believe we continued this so that we could get a survey plan in from Mr. Bunker.
Yes, I'm Tom Bunker with BSS Design. I've provided the stamped plan as requested, showing the property for this project.
Okay. Any questions?
No question. 1 second now. Chris, I don't think you had any modifications to your planning scheme at all. No. It was just to get Tom's plan stuff. Yep.
Like I say, it shows,
The
plan I
back
did
lot
shows
line,
the
there was-
existing conditions. I didn't put all of the proposed changes on it. This is a record of
Right.
what's out there now, and Teresa's is the record of the plan
Yeah.
for the order.
Right. Okay?
Yes, to that, I just have one question. When I'm looking at that limit of lot, I'm seeing it's limit of lot 2. On the 18 and 10 buildings, Teresa? And yours, and I think it's, forgive me if I'm wrong with the abutters, but concerned about, does your planting plan, and I think it does for those two buildings, does it go beyond the lot, the limit for lot 2, in front of building 10 and 18?
It goes beyond the limit for lot 2, but it does not go off the property. It's kind of
Oh, so you own both properties?
it's kind of a fluke in the way that the original subdivision plan was drawn. Then there was a later plan by Cape and Islands or Aero Engineering, which created the lot 2, which was a combination of 4 lots on the original subdivision plan.
Tom,
Yes.
is the work going to be done on property owned and
Yes.
controlled by the Cape Cod Condominium
Yes.
Association? That's all I need to know. Keep the fluke.
No flukes.
Thank you. As long as we're not going on someone else's property that we need permission from.
The deeds call for running by the waters of Pleasants Bay.
Okay. Thank you.
Motion to close and take it under advisement.
Second.
Okay. Arthur?
Members of the board, again, my name is Arthur Gaines, 61 Haynes Avenue. I'm here speaking on behalf of the Sippawisset Association, on which I'm an officer, and we represent 130 families along Sippawisset Road, basically from Quisset Harbor to Woodneck Beach. And I'm also an owner in the Sippawisset subdivision. It's 193 lots and 135 acres of land on a plan filed in 1897. The proposed project lies in both of those areas, so they're for 2 reasons of concern to us. I've spoken before in verbally and submitted writings that our concern is on this project is principally has to do with the rights of way, of which there are several crossing this property. And from my observations of the improved plan, it looks to me like we're basically satisfied, although I have some points to make, and I won't take long.
They have to do with conservation?
Let me say that one reason why we're concerned about rights-of-way here is that we're talking about a landscaping project, and that's going to involve putting things, places, trees and so forth, and removing things from places, and it's going to be concerned with erosion. And all of those things are also relevant to rights-of-way, because people will be walking across this property in exercising their rights-of-way. And we would like to, we want this project to be successful, and to be successful, we are submitting that it should be coordinated with consideration of rights-of-way. And I guess, for example, one of the points we would make is that the 1993 Zoning Board of Appeals right-of-way created a connection between Cape Cod Road and Buzzards Bay in a 15-foot strip that is shown on this plan. And we would submit that in the course of conducting the plan as proposed, its implementation, monitoring over time, and correcting problems over time, it will involve the applicant's people walking across that inclined slope and so forth. And so what I'm suggesting is that a pathway be determined by the applicant's consultants, and we use the same path as the right-of-way. So there's one pathway for implementing and carrying out the project, and the same path is used as a right-of-way. And this would involve changing the description of the right-of-way from a 15-foot boundary along the northern border. And some attorneys would say, well, that's very difficult and impossible. But I would say, given the skillful lawyers we have here in Falmouth, we could find one who would find a way of making that a legal right-of-way. And it would enhance the project as proposed, which we want to do.
Well, I think that's a good idea. All that's a good idea, but it has nothing to do with conservation. What I suggest is that you work with the Cape Codder, and if there's a change in plan,
Sure, we can do that.
it can come up.
We can do that, but I hear you talking about landscaping, and this has to do with landscaping. But no, I mean, I accept what you're saying. The colonial ordinance matter is not a problem for us, because when you go down there at the beach, you can see what the intertidal zone is. But I'm wondering why the plan designates an NAVD, a vertical datum, but it doesn't designate which one. There are two that are used commonly, the 1929 datum and the 1988 datum. And according to the town engineer, these can differ by as much as about 9/10 of a foot. Well, 9/10 of a foot is amount of sea level rise in the last 70 years. So the difference between these two datums is equivalent to, or can be as much as
Well, you can ask the person who did it. You can ask Tom what he used.
Who did what? Well,
Tom
yeah,
is
good.
it's Tom's plan.
It's on the plan now.
And what year is that?
NAVD, which one? The one for 1929 is the NGVD, 1929, NAVD.
And so it's the 88 one you used? Okay, well, it would be nice to put that down, because
It's on the
Well,
plan.
it is now.
I didn't
He
see
said-
the number on the plan. I saw the,
NAVD is NAVD.
okay. Okay, I accept that
Okay.
correction. And we're glad to see the back lot line is put on the map, which delineates the seaward boundary of the property. And other than that, I have no further comments unless there are questions or...
Thank you.
Yeah, and I agree with the right-of-way, if that could be incorporated into ways that Teresa, hopefully, if it's not Teresa, we're going to be going through this all over again. But hopefully it'll be Teresa's project, and yeah. I suggest you talk with
We
people
definitely
in the
don't
Cape.
want people exercising the right-of-way to be undoing the...
Absolutely.
so-
Okay, thanks. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table to close this hearing and take it under advisement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Oh, you're not on this. So you just don't have to say anything. So you, yeah, so you, yeah, and just put a, like that.
Leave a blank space for him?
Yeah, just like an X that he wasn't here.
All right, thank you.
Okay, second group of people. Anybody wants to talk, please go all the way down to the main hall. see any stamps on the thing for Moses Road. I just saw the stamp that it came in. I didn't see any engineer stamp.
There will be when it comes back.
Oh, I hope so. William McGann, 5 Foster Road, East Falmouth, for permission to demarcate the western property bound using 4 pilings with minimum 8-inch diameter and marine rope and the associated grading and landscaping. Jen? Good evening. Hi. Jen didn't respond, so we'll have, you start.
Okay, Jen, you want me to start? Yeah, please. Okay, my name is Tara Martin. I'm from the Woods Hole Group, and I'm here to represent Bill McGann tonight. Tonight, I'm here to present a project where Mr. McGann would like to install 4 piles on his property, along the property line. He would like to install marine rope between each of the 4 piles as a way of doing a property line demarcation. The 4 piles are on the beach. They've been surveyed in and staked for use in the field. And that's about it.
Okay, Jen, any questions?
No.
Court?
This was one we saw before with a more extensive fence. Is that correct?
Well, this is one we saw before with a more extensive fence that wasn't on their property, so it was denied.
So now we have a fence that's less extensive on his property.
Correct.
I have no other questions.
Tommy?
Four pilings coming down the coastal bank, or it's a dune.
Yeah, there's a dune that we created there.
Yeah.
Right here.
So there's 1 pile at the edge of the dune.
Okay.
And there are 3 piles, 1 at the toe, and then 2 piles on the beach. All above mean-high water.
With line or ropes on them for a handhold.
Just ropes attached between the ropes, between the piles.
Okay.
Marine rope, the heavy marine rope that would be strung between the piles rather than putting 2x12s.
Yeah, that'll look nicer. Yeah. Are those going through the posts, or are they
No, they're
eyes?
attached on the side. I think they're,
Yeah,
If we could put them through the post, that would be great, but I'm not sure if we can.
doesn't
we can do
matter
that.
to me, but I
Yeah,
would
we
use
haven't drilled
stainless. I'd use stainless. That's it.
You'd use what?
Stainless steel.
Stainless steel rope?
Eyes.
no, the,
But stainless
both
cable
have
could
to
be
show
cool
here.
too.
no.
Okay.
That's it.
It's a single string.
I think there's 2 strings.
Two strands.
Right here.
Okay, I'm looking at this thing. Oh, okay.
Piles.
16 inches.
The ropes would stay up all year.
Yes.
Okay. That's my only question.
Lord?
No questions.
I have a couple of questions. One is, I went out and took pictures at mid-tide, and then I went and called Peter O'Connor, our town engineer today, and I said, Peter, I said, we have a plan, a Holmes and McGrath plan, that shows mean high water. But I said, what happens if you're in an area where sand is moved? I said, mean high water is a given height in a given area, and in this, it looks like it's about 2 feet. And the fact is, the sand's moved, shifted here, so now 2 of these stakes are below mean high water.
They're not below mean high water, because mean high water is averaged over many years.
It is, but it's a height, it's a given height. And Peter said there should be a stake in the field, and it should show where that 2-foot elevation is. And
Okay, but
here's a
when you-
picture, you can actually see high tide, and I have the time of the tide back here, but this was a very calm day today when I was out there, and high tide is right there.
Mean high water is different than high tide.
Um,
And today was spring tide, because I actually went out to the Falmouth property today because it was spring tide, because I wanted to see if there were any piles left on the beach from when we did the project last year. And I specifically picked today because it's a spring tide, which is the highest tide of the entire month.
But it's
So
not
it
that much.
doesn't-
I
it's
went
not-
out in two, I have two high tides marked here, and where that pile is, the sand has moved, and it's below mean high tide.
But the sand will build back up in the summer. I mean, the beach is always lower in winter, and that's why mean high water is an average.
It may or may not. There are a lot of people who want to walk this beach.
They can still walk the beach. It doesn't, when you go out there and see where the water level is, that's not any indication of where mean high water. Chapter 91 protects the beach below mean high water. That's an average that's based over 19 or 29 years.
I
It's a
understand what
long-term
mean high
average.
water is. I'm telling you whether there's sand on that beach or not. Where the mean high water line is further inland, which means that those stakes, that last stake is further out.
But the beach fluctuates dramatically every day. So this is what a certified land surveyor certified as mean high water.
So that's one point.
Okay?
Actually, Jen, I'd like to get a written opinion from Peter, if you could call him tomorrow. And
So you want Peter to look at the survey? I can have him look at the, if you want him to look at the survey, that's fine. I'll have
Yep.
him look at the survey. Okay.
have him go out there and look at the stakes.
This was just staked a week ago. It was just staked. I mean, we
Well, I
just
know
had
it's
it
staked where he staked the 2-foot elevation in the summertime. I understand that.
It wasn't staked in the summer. The project, they
I
just staked
know,
this last week.
But I
went
know
out
when
there.
he surveyed it. He did not survey it last week.
We just had a new survey done. That's new survey data. We had the survey updated to include the new revetment that we just did, and we just had it staked last week.
Well, that's not 2
I
foot.
mean, this is like a moving target. You could go there every day, and it could be different. I mean, the beach changes every day. In the summer,
This
it
has a
could be-
2-foot elevation. The tide today was like
The
high
tide
was
tomorrow could be
1.5.
different. The tide tomorrow could be different.
They're not changing that much. The tide today was 1.5 feet, and it was far inland
It
of
was a
this
spring
last
tide
stake.
today. I beg to differ. I think the tide was higher.
I
than
looked
1.5
up the tides.
It was a spring tide.
I'm not making this up. I have what the tides were.
Listen, I went to the beach today because it was a spring tide. Specifically picked today because there was the highest and lowest tides of the whole entire
I
month.
want an opinion from our,
Okay, but this was just staked and it was just surveyed. So this is like a moving target. Like, I feel as though you're looking for a reason to deny this. I mean, what would you like to see? The pile moved a couple of feet
well,
up on the beach?
I have something else that I have a problem with also. And this is something for the new people on the board. This is a project, unlike most of the projects we see, which are primarily buffer projects, so they're buffers to other resources. This is a project that's actually in a resource. And so when you have projects like this, it's important to open up your regulations and to read what the regulations for that resource say. And I just want to point out, coastal beaches are important to aesthetics when they are without imposing structures. They are part of the classic New England landscape. And also, and actually, we're going to have this coming up in another project soon, too. In velocity zones, fences are allowed parallel for like snow fences for dunes, but there's no provision for fences that are perpendicular to the coastline. I just want you to be thinking about that. Think about the implications if this project were allowed and every private beach demarcated their property line this way.
It's not want a fence, it's 4 piles, and your regulation actually allows piles in the velocity zone. And I brought a copy of it if you'd like to see where the regulation allows. In aesthetics, you're talking about a section of coastline, there are groins every 50 feet on the beach. There are bulkheads that extend from one groin to the next, where there are literally thousands of piles on this beach. I have been removing the piles on the beach to improve the aesthetics and moved that probably 300 or 400 piles from the Colleran property and the Wilmette property last year in massive amounts. 18 truckloads, 18 wheelers full of boulders and piles from this particular beach last spring. Okay, we're trying to clean this beach up and make it look good. Mr. McGann has a right, just because he lives on the beach, he paid to have the front yard as a beach. He owns that portion of beach in front of him. Just like you, if you want to put a fence up, I mean, do you want me coming and hanging out in your front yard?
Tara,
I know, but you know what, this has become more of just, let's look at the regulations. You allow
Tara,
piles
I say that
in the B zone. I don't know
everyone
what
in
the
this
problem
room,
is.
everyone in this room knows that I always say, make your decision based on the regulation.
Right, but your regulation allows the piles. You are the one that actually told me last year when I came here with this same project that we should consider using marine rope instead of 2x12s. That's why I changed it to marine rope. You made the suggestion at this meeting while I stood right
Tara,
here.
that's when you indicated that your client owned the previous fence that was there and you were replacing a fence.
Listen, that's all semantics. You can twist my words around if you want. That fence was there for 60 years. 60 years. I don't want my neighbors hanging out in my front yard. Okay, yes, below
Tara,
high water.
Tara, we're not going to argue. The fence that you came
I've
in
already
before
gone to town council. They supported this project.
was a previous,
I've been to town council. I met with them. They supported this project.
Tara, if that's true, why don't you give us a letter from town council?
No, because town council does not want to get involved. I sat for 2 hours in their office a couple months ago, where we offered to clean up the beach at Davisville Extension, because the beach committee wants it cleaned up. We offered to clean up the beach, take out the piles, take out the rocks, bring some sand in, make it look nicer. We offered to do these things because Don Hartford doesn't have the money to do it. And town council was all for it. And then town council said, you know what, we can't get involved. Don Hartford wants to use Bill's access to get to the beach because the dune has already been taken apart. I mean, there could have been a sharing of resource areas here. We could have done some of this in conjunction with each other. I don't
Tara,
understand.
town council, the town manager's office, the
Well, town
Conservation
manager, that's where I
Commission,
went, town manager's
the
office.
Conservation Commission, nor the Beach Committee are going to trade
Right, I
order of
understand that.
conditions.
I understand that, but they also told me he had a right to mark his property line.
The town council and the town manager's office are not the Conservation Commission. We
Tell me how this impacts
have our
resource areas.
regulations.
How does this impact the resource area?
It's
3
simply,
individual piles spaced 10 feet on the beach does not change the shape, the form
Tara.
of the beach. It doesn't change sediment transport.
Tara, I'm one person. We'll
Okay,
have-
but I
we'll
want you
have
to explain to me,
deliberation.
because you're the one that has the issue with the project. Nobody else even has any questions. How does this not meet the performance
What
standards in the
pro- what-
regulation?
What problem does it have?
Yes,
I live on the west side of the town. There's a stretch of beach that's a 1/4 mile long that actually is 6 private beaches. If each of those private beaches wanted to put one of these here, which if this is allowed, then anybody should be able to put it. We're going to have,
well, if it's a private beach and it's within the regulations, they should be allowed to do it.
well,
As
that-
long as they stay
that
above mean high
affects-
water. This is not about impeding access below mean high water. We're
me-
protecting mean high water.
To me,
But that's a personal issue.
it isn't personal.
But
It
you
has-
allow this in the regulation. You allow
Coastal
piles in the
beaches
B zone.
are important to aesthetics when they are not with
Aesthetics
imposing
in an area, you
structures.
can't even walk down half that beach. There's so many piles
Tara.
of rocks, there's structures. The fence was there for 60 years. It would, and
We're-
this is way less benign.
This is not that fence. Tara, we're going to get an opinion from our town engineer.
Well, we should meet on site then, and we should talk about it.
So would you like a continuance?
Yes, but I want to know how we're going to continue it, though. I want to know, we should know now moving forward. Are we going to go out there with Holmes and McGrath, Tim Santos or Mike McGrath, and the town engineer, and we're going to stand on the beach and figure out where mean high water is? It's not based on where the water's moving up and down on the beach every day. It has nothing to do with the rack line or what part of the beach is wet and what part of the beach is dry. It has nothing to do with that.
Lady, I will ask town engineer, who's also GLS, to meet with me. I'll ask him to review the plan. I'll ask him to review how mean high water is demarcated on the plan.
And how it should be staked in the field.
And then we will go out in the field and do it. You're gonna have to give me some time, Kara, to talk to Peter, get him to review the plan, and then I can pick a date. I can't just pick a date, 'cause I don't know.
That's
Peter's
fine, that's
schedule.
totally fine. I would like to participate in the meeting, and I would like to have Tim Santos there, who stamped the drawing and defend
Actually,
the
Joel
drawing.
did. I think Joel stamped it.
Or Joel, whoever
Yeah.
from Holmes and McGrath
Because I
stamped the
think,
drawing.
we're gonna want the surveyor out there, and that was Joel. I'm not sure if Tim has a Joel.
That's fine, but I would like to know myself, how does this not meet the performance standards? Other than you say aesthetics, but this is an area that's already, that we're trying to clean the place up. It's, the beach is a mess
Tara, we're not gonna
out there.
argue anymore.
I mean, Donna's coming in tonight to try and remove more clutter from the beach out there, because it's such a mess.
So
I don't really understand what's going on. We have a set of plans that are stamped.
Right.
That means we go by them. Period.
I mean, this is a moving target.
Excuse me, I'm not finished talking. Is it or is it not our duty to go by the plans as presented by a registered professional?
If you have questions, and the staff has in the past, ask the town engineer to look at the plans. We do it for stormwater plans, we do it for some surveying plans where we think there might be an issue, where this board or the staff thinks there's an issue, because, I mean, so we ask for it's basically a referral from the town engineering department. I don't think if it's, it's a stretched ask. I have them review flood.
In fact, they
flood zones.
reviewed the plans here that showed that the previous fence
Yeah,
was
so I
on
have to
town
review that.
property.
You guys absolutely can request our surveying department, our engineering department to review the plan if you guys want to. And I will put in the referral, I will make the review happen.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, if the board wants it, I can make it done. I sometimes do it on my own when the flood zones are, usually when it has flood zones. But we can, if that's what the board wants, I'll make it happen. But I don't know Peter's schedule off the top of my head. So you're gonna have to give me tomorrow to talk to
It's fine.
him. If you
Yep,
give
I
me a
understand.
couple of weeks, I can probably.
So shall we say
have
3
him
weeks?
review the plan and then coordinate a site visit with Mike, Joel, Tim, you, me, Peter, Scott, and whoever would like to come. So, that's.
3 weeks?
I'm gonna need a couple of weeks there.
That's
So
all right.
the 19th, wait a minute, when do we have on the 19th? 1, 2.
This shouldn't take too long when you come back.
Want it on the 19th, we can put it, but then we have to limit the 19th because we have a large remote hearing that night as well.
We're almost at the end of the hearing now, so I don't see.
Yeah, that's
don't
what I
see
mean.
anything-
It
yeah.
shouldn't be that long. I just want to have, I called Peter today, and that's,
I'll talk to her tomorrow
okay.
and have it.
Okay, 19th?
Yeah, did you have a question?
Actually, just, I don't know how to ask this without kicking the same thing. Opinion comes from somebody, and it's a conservative one, and it raises the mean high water 2 feet that way. The pile would end up moving 2 feet that way, potentially.
Yes.
But say all the stars are aligned, it ends up going 2 feet the opposite direction, that means that one pile that's in contention right now, because I don't see this being that huge a deal, because I didn't want to stand in the way of it before. There's other structures out there that inhibit far more than what this does, particularly just 30 feet.
In the other
The other
direction,
direction.
there's a huge fence with
You know,
2 by 12.
there's other things that I'd rather hang my hat on. If this is all for the mean high water, fine, when we establish that, then that's...
Then that's it. Well, I mean, we don't need any more information.
Exactly.
Right. And I'll
And
tell
I-
you why I'm concerned with mean high water. Because this is an area that has a large number of people who come to this beach and walk in the wintertime. And these are pictures are taken mid-tide.
And I can appreciate that. I do appreciate the efforts and the information that's given. I truly do. But I'm not even remotely gonna start that conversation right now,
Yeah.
as far as what that is. I'm
Yeah,
going to make a
wait.
motion to continue this to February 19th.
Perfect.
Second.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor of continuing this hearing to February 19th, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Yeah, and then, on Friday, tomorrow, the meeting back tomorrow. I'll try to get hold of you on my way.
Okay, great, thank you.
Shanklin Family Real Estate Trust, 663 Minot Road, East Falmouth, for permission to create a 20-foot wide construction access, rebuild, repair, and elevate the existing 195 linear foot stone wall by 2 feet, construct a 4-foot wide private access stairs to the seawall, construct a 3-foot by 4-foot public access stairs, add 125 square feet stone mound retaining wall, replant vegetation, removed by access construction, install beach grass in an eroded area, and the associated clearing, grading, excavating, and landscaping, and all that is to tell you that it's continued.
Crap! I really, darn, I really had my gun loaded too. Darn!
But it was well staked. It was well staked.
Oh,
Continued?
I need you, is that
When is it continued to?
February 12th?
May I have a motion?
motion to continue this till February 12th.
Second.
Any questions? Any questions in the audience?
Want to talk about this project?
Oh, I was so excited.
He was ready.
Oh, poop.
All in favor of the motion on the table to continue to February 12th, say aye.
Aye.
All,
And it's 423, guys, sorry. The
What?
request to
Yeah.
continue.
all opposed? Unanimous, so moved. It was fun to go out in the snow today.
Should we make a
It
note
was
about
actually
that
very
over here, or
pretty
just
out
leave it
there.
alone?
Yeah. Just a little there, 220, 212,
I don't think
212.
I've ever seen you get that excited. Well, no, I have.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
here's another one. We'll get excited
said
for Don's project.
hooray.
Town of Falmouth Beach Committee, care of Don Hoffer, Minot Beach, Minot Road, East Falmouth, for permission to remove all the hidden rocks, asphalt, pilings, wooden structures, and any other assorted stuff that's there that has to be removed, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. John? Don? Jen? Any questions? Any comments?
Yeah, Don, I mean, I know of the man-made structure, but you want them to remove the rocks. Do you have any idea how many are out there?
Well, I laid out a 30 by, let me just get my
No, those were all-
goggles here.
Okay.
I laid out, rather than count, it's very difficult to count the rocks.
I know, that's why I want to make sure
But-
that we
but
know
we could,
exactly what we're removing.
Well, we looked at, it's 30 foot wide, that road, the old road. And by 100 is what we said. As far as the exact number of rocks we can, our main goal is to get rid of any that somebody might strike if they go in at high tide.
That's really bad, because how are we going to know if the rocks are placed there? I don't have any issue with removing the root structures, the spikes that are changed this structure over the last year. You're asking us for a 100 by 30 foot, 3,000 square feet area that you want to remove every rock in
Well-
because someone might stub their toe. I'm having a little bit of a problem.
No, I think it's more serious than that, Jen. I mean, if somebody dives in there and hits their head on one of those rocks, the town's gonna be paying for it. I would suggest this, if we just, when we get this thing on the road, we get our extended clamshell or whatever we're gonna use to remove them, that I notify you, and we can kind of take a look and see what we...
How am I gonna know the rocks came from the old road? I
Oh.
mean, you could sit there and ask me
Oh, I can
to dredge out 5,000 square foot area off
No,
the
no, no,
Falmouth
no.
Heights Beach and
These are
say,
in- these are
somebody's
in-
gonna stub their toe.
They're inside the outline of the road.
Okay.
They're all inside. We've got a zillion rocks on that beach, but these rocks,
You can't put them out on the west side of the dune, natural heritage.
well, and they're wrong there too. They wouldn't touch, that wouldn't hurt. I mean, I'd go along with it.
Do not go there.
I-
You've heard from natural heritage, those rocks.
Oh, no,
are
no, I
on
told-
the west side.
I answered
Do not say to people that are wrong.
I answered them. And I said, if you don't want the rocks to build up that dune, so be it. We'll move them to a landfill. The piping flowers aren't gonna make a nest on a stone that's that big. It's not
Do you have
practical.
a degree in biology or wildlife biology, Doctor?
I am a beach superintendent, I shouldn't even be here, I'm trying to do a favor to the town.
I understand that, Don, and like.
I happen to be an engineer, but that's...
Jen, let's
beside
just
the point.
move along, and we can put conditions as need. You want to remove the asphalt
Pilings, I have no
and the
issue with.
pilings.
There's a vague number of rocks.
There is a lot of asphalt showing.
Right.
Right.
There's
Yeah,
a
the
lot of...
asphalt, I have no issue with the pilings, the wood, any of that, the enormous boulders. What I have concerns with, Don, is you removing absolutely everything in that 3,000 square feet.
It's a very localized area that has these stones in it. Number one, it's between, you folks have this, you should have a picture like this. I'd be glad to make some copies.
Yes,
It
we do
shows,
in the-
it shows the outline of the road, and all the rocks we're talking about. You can see rocks everywhere, but the rocks we're talking about are in between that row of stakes that are sticking up. And they only go out so far, because then the road starts, you can see in the distance,
Right, yep.
you can see in the distance where the road comes back in, over here. We're not touching anything here. These are right in this area right here.
This is it.
Yeah, so you're going to
This is
move
it.
Let's see.
rocks that are within the,
That's correct.
Yep.
And it's a relatively small area.
yep, it's delineated by the things that are sticking up.
Yes.
Oh, I know that.
You see how
But I
there's
also
part of the
know
road
that-
here, part of the road here. We're not touching any of those.
On this upside.
Oh, on this side either.
Right.
The distant side, yeah.
Yep.
See,
So you're gonna take out the rocks in this area right here?
Yep,
Yeah, before the inlet was right where that bridge is, it's no longer there. So that road just went out and came right back into.
Okay, we'll go
joined
out
the
there and do
road.
that, You understand what I'm saying, though?
Yes.
I mean, you
I'd
were
be
very
glad to
vague
show.
before, and it's like, oh, we need to
Yeah.
remove all the rocks out in here.
No,
You know,
no, no,
you
no,
didn't
no.
have it very
It's right in
clearly
here.
defined.
We've buoyed this off for the last couple of summers.
No, and I understand that, Don. We've pulled the
You know,
pilings out there. We know
Don-
there's an issue.
What's that?
if you were to leave what you suggested,
Yep.
which Natural Heritage doesn't want to, but if you had a storm, you'd get them all
That's
right
not-
back out here again.
That's not what they're
don't want
talking
that.
about, though. They're
We were
not
gonna
talking
take these
about the
rocks and
sacrificial thing.
Buttress them against.
Yeah,
Because right
but if
now,
there's
there's
a
a
big
lot of
storm-
stones up against the dune.
Well, that's fine,
They're not
but
talking about that.
No, I know.
Yeah.
They're
I
talking
answered-
about where the birds were nesting.
I answered them
Where the
specifically.
developer wants to dump a bunch of boulders, and they will have an issue with that.
And we're not gonna be dumping boulders in. That's the end of that.
questions?
None.
Show
John, how are
Tommy
you getting
important.
machine out there?
You see this?
Well, we discussed this at the last meeting. I cannot guarantee a certain contractor to come out here. I'm gonna have to write some type of a specification
Yep.
that'll allow some competition here. I have discussed this with a gentleman who has done this type of stuff. And
See what he's saying? He's
He-
saying that was
he
where the
mentioned,
new water line was at that time.
lubricating oils that
because
are,
that changes
are not, that are,
depending
what do we
on
want to
whether the
say?
sand
Bio-
rises or lows.
Biochemicals and so on.
Yep.
This is a hard-packed beach. You may insist on matting, but I'll tell you one thing. You get an excavator out there with rubber ties, and the first tide that comes in will take care of, will remove any indication that was ever there. Because it's not gonna sink deep into
No.
the sand. But if you insist on matting, I guess that would be part of the spec.
Who has a machine that can reach out there and get those?
Well, there are machines that will extend out there, and we would do it at low tide. That picture you
Yeah.
have there is not the lowest tide. No, I'm sorry. We can-
No, Don, I know, and we're gonna get rid of everything, we're gonna get rid of stuff, but you understand where my concern is it has to be very well delineated. And this plan isn't very well delineated out in the field of where you wanted to do the work, okay? So we're gonna have to go out there, the conservation staff is gonna have to go out there and monitor the stuff that's coming out of there. The rocks, the asphalt, you know, I've worked with you guys, we've gotten a ton of asphalt off that beach, gotten some of the pilings out of that beach. You can't say that I haven't let you guys do some work out there.
No, and that's how, we have a pretty good idea. I think the question was asked the last time I was here, how deep, how do we know where these things go? Well, we've taken some out,
Yes, we have. I
including
was
some
there.
horizontal pieces too.
Yeah, oh yeah.
At one time, there was a wall that went all the way along that beach.
No, I know, and that's what we're trying to get rid of. And
And-
I fully and completely support that. You know, I've been after you to do it and do it correctly. I just need it to know that I'm not gonna have a machine running up and down that beach, pulling every little cobble out of there.
No.
Because somebody might, you know what I'm saying? I understand
I think
the
that's the
concern.
only, there are other pieces of wood showing up here and there, it's just the erosion is so serious.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But, what I did was I put a lifeguard right there last summer. We buoyed it, we put signs up, what did we do?
No, I mean,
We spelled the
you're
sign
doing-
wrong.
You're trying to do a good job. It's just like I said, it wasn't very tight
Yeah,
for
that's
my
what I was-
liking, and I've worked with you guys out there enough to know that I needed something a little bit more structured. So, we'll have to find out who your contractor is, I'll have to meet with them, you'll be out there.
That would be fine.
Yeah, and I don't know who you're gonna use, we'll have to approve who you're gonna use and make sure that they have the right equipment on that piece.
And I'm going to agree with Mr. Hoffer that the tide cycle after you
Oh,
do
yeah,
whatever you
yeah,
do
it'll be- yeah.
is going to
I mean,
be,
Any crack or anything like that.
yeah,
is
out
gonna be
in
off.
West Falmouth on
And
Associates
they're
Road, they removed
Yeah.
the foundation out there and the rebar that was
Oh, yeah,
involved in that.
We don't
And
anticipate any excavation either,
Yeah. well,
per
it's-
se. I mean, no
That's
fill,
what
no
I was
fill.
worried about, is
no
that you're
fill.
gonna be digging in there to get these rocks
You know,
done. and-
Well, the rocks are sitting
I
there.
get
They
this
You ought to be able to
now.
pick those babies right up.
Yeah, I don't want the.
I don't think you
kids
should
out
be
there
doing that.
digging.
Pardon?
I don't think you should be doing that.
No,
Not good for your
But I
back.
saw them take a couple of those pilings out with just a chain and a front end loader,
They just,
shake it a little bit. They go, some of them 10 feet deep.
They were big, they were big.
shake it to make that sand nice and,
You understand what I'm
Loose.
saying, Don? If we can visibly see them, we'll get them out of there.
Yeah.
But as far as.
I just don't think there'll be much excavating
out
or
there.
backfill or anything like that. I don't anticipate that.
No, and the tracks will disappear, Natural Heritage doesn't want the rocks on that west side. dune,
That's fine.
East side dune, where the birds are.
And there exists a fine opening in the dune. You don't have to mess around with the dune at
Yeah.
all. There's an access.
Well, it's more of a stop.
The last time we did this, we had a container sitting in the parking lot. And they brought the wood up there, dropped it in the
last
container,
time you
and
did
took it to an approved.
I remember that, wasn't that, we were out there 2 years ago?
Stop working on the beach without us knowing about it, like afterwards.
I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Good idea.
Don, when you get a contractor, let me know, we'll talk to him.
All right.
Okay, that'll be fine.
Listen,
We'll get it done, Don.
No, but I mean, I'm bringing work on myself, now I gotta write a spec.
Tom,
It's not that bad, I can do it.
we have a question, Don.
Is all of the removal is between those two groins in your picture there?
That's between that row, the old road.
Here and here,
Those rocks there stay.
right there,
These stay and these stay.
yeah.
It's in
The
between.
groins
We
stay
may
where
not
the old road
completely
is.
eliminate the hazard, but we can try to get as
Well,
many.
let's get as
That's
much
the whole idea.
as much
out of here
we
as
can.
possible.
How much are you gonna be involved in supervision of this?
Some of those are already gone, I think, Tom.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
How much are you gonna be on site here? How much are you gonna be
Oh, I'll
supervising
have
these
either
guys?
myself or Mr. Magato will be here 100% of the time.
100% these machines are running?
As what?
These machines are running, removing this?
I will have either myself
Don
or,
or-
Yeah.
I have an
Bruce.
assistant, Bruce Magato, who's
Yeah.
very knowledgeable. We will be, one or the other, or both will be there.
Okay,
He loves to stand there and watch the proceedings.
yeah, I mean, I would be comfortable with not so much staff supervision to save time, especially.
No, it's gonna have to be pretty controlled.
Yeah,
It's pretty controlled.
I've been out on that beach enough.
okay, that was it.
We may not have a beach there. I told the DPW chief that I can see the day when that road's gone.
Well, the whole road, all of our
Well, they were
coastal
talking about
roads.
Surf Drive and the Enterprise yesterday.
Surf Drive, what about Minot
I know.
by 4 Mile Bridge?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table to close this hearing and take it under advisement.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, we haven't voted yet, though.
No, I know.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. There we go.
Thank you.
Where do you want me to see?
My timing was
Down here?
good.
Oh,
What do you- the
no,
name?
right here.
Okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, just put
Thank you very much.
the date. Where do you have the date?
Right here?
Oh, yeah, and then just put it here.
Over a year?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you can just say close, somewhere it says you can put the close date, which is today.
You're up, Tom.
Tom. Diana Durkin Cuddy, 350 West Falmouth Highway, West Falmouth, request to amend the existing order of conditions, DEP number 253957, to decrease the size of the house.
Yep. Well,
Visual aid.
Hey, Tom,
2:19 PM.
yeah,
Pretty specific, isn't it?
it is.
Thank you,
Tells you
Tom.
where it was at that time, with the indication that it might be a different spot, a different time.
It's different.
Madam Chairman,
Thank you.
What?
I was gonna ask you, which is this one? I know what you're pointing at. Yeah, I just want to see the photo. I know. Oh, that's awesome.
Okay, thank you. My name's Tom Bunker, ESS Design.
Good evening, Tom.
See if we can make this quick.
Good idea.
This was approved, see, I gave you two plans. The first page is what was approved on October 7, 2013. Since that time, Diane has been going through Board of Appeals and historic districts and talking with her neighbors. This is a condominium project. So through the course of being beat up with Board of Appeals,
Not a no board. Did I hear that?
no, they didn't say no, they just
Oh.
said,
Oh, they
Change
beat
it.
him up a little. Oh.
actually, if you'll notice, the last revision on there says enlarge,
Our regulations.
says enlarge the house slightly. But that was because previously it got quite a bit smaller. If, I can show you on these two that I gave you, show what was approved was 50.4 feet from the south property line. And what we're proposing now is 68.2 feet, so we've got it 18 feet smaller. And if you can look at these two plans, you can just see how much, and actually, a lot of that, before it was all an addition, some of the addition is actually going on top of the
the one that she wanted to try to put down.
in there, so it's gotten a lot smaller, 18 feet by whatever that is. I mean, it's several hundred square feet smaller. The planting is the same because the planting calculation in the DCPC relates to how much of the area is not in a natural state. And so the planting is the same, but the house has gotten significantly smaller.
So this planning is just because it's the DCPC?
Yes,
Okay.
correct, and remember how we had a condition that it would go into the common area
Right.
Yeah.
if the condo association approves it, and since I know of another possible project out in this area that will also require DCPC planting,
Yeah.
I have confidence that they'll all be putting it in the common area.
They're now talking,
Yes,
and
I
let's
know.
come back again
I
and
know.
show a revised plan.
I'm well aware.
For now,
of the negotiations going on.
have this house of this size to match with what the Board of Appeals has approved and the Historic District approved. I can note also that on the previous plan, there was dry wells for the Historic District not allowed gutters, so we have some stone drip strips along there instead of the dry wells, which achieve the same purpose.
I think we could have a motion.
Motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
Thank you, Tom.
Any further questions? Tom, any further comments?
Not for me. Thank you.
All in favor of the motion on the table, which is to close this hearing and take it under advisement, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night, Tom, thank you.
Very patient. Sorry you had to stay so late.
Say that.
Fibber.
It's better in public than watching on TV, isn't it?
I watched it on TV while eating dinner.
Oh,
Still here way early.
Wow.
yeah, well, we're here later than we intended to be also.
Yeah.
Other business, review plan, Eel Pond Realty. Since some of us have lost our Eel Pond Realty, Jen has moved this till when? And she's going to give us the plans again.
No. Il Pond Realty Trust is
Oh.
Woods Hole Market. They did request to have an extension for their plan.
Yep.
I did
They're
talk
working on it.
To Jeff, he is working on it. I talked to his engineer. I spoke with the applicant or the property owner again yesterday, and he assured me he did have it in. I was supposed to hear from them on whether or not
It was the 12th of the night.
22nd or the 5th would work. I didn't, so I'm just gonna err on the side of caution and go with the 5th, just so we can have enough, and that's it. Drop that
5th of March?
deadline, March 5th.
Okay.
We'll have the hearing, so they need to have the plan in a week prior, which is the 29th. Am I right? Do I have my dates right?
I think so.
Hang on. No, I don't. Do I have it on February 20th? Do I have it February 20th? I have it February 26th. I'm sorry.
There isn't a February 29th this year.
No, there's a February 26th.
But we
I know
want,
it didn't sound right.
I would like someone to make a motion to continue this to March 5th.
So moved.
Could I have a second?
Yes, a second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table to continue to March 5th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, unanimous, so moved. Conservation restriction.
That's the one that's been misplaced, Madam Chairman.
Yes, somebody misplaced it. Oh, it's that one. I have it at home. I haven't read it, though.
You said, no, I didn't get it. You did, you got it electronically, and you all got a hard copy, including you, Laura, you got a hard copy of it. If you
Can
need
I see it again?
Laura, if you need another one, Russ, I'll get you a copy as well. This will be your first conservation restriction.
I may not have a copy. I'm thinking of
Oh,
something
yeah,
else.
I have that.
Yeah.
That I have from Ahmet Law.
So, we will continue that until the 12th.
I make a motion to continue that till the 12th.
Second.
February 12th. Motion and second to continue to February 12th.
This is,
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed,
Yes,
unanimous, so
when you say
moved.
that, that's what you need.
2:1.15
Now, you don't have to
Yes,
vote
leave
orders and
that
conditions because you
for the
weren't here.
We're hearing.
But
Put a
Okay.
little
if
note
you
on it.
want, this is what you could do.
For the Municus.
You could sign, because what that signing means is that we agreed to whatever those papers said.
Okay.
It doesn't mean you voted, even if you voted against something, you can still sign something, because as a group, we agreed to it. Okay, 104 Minot Road,
I have that.
Spirito.
It's all of you except Russell.
Yes,
Lori, Betsy, Thomas, Ford, out.
not Tommy. Tommy wasn't here on my birthday.
The 15th
Yes,
is your birthday?
it is. It's gone.
Yeah, it's
You
my
have to wait
girlfriend's,
for another year.
it's my girlfriend's birthday, that's why I wasn't here.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, what a good day.
Yeah, there you go. Well, happy belated birthday.
Thank you. Did you have a good time?
104 Minot,
Good.
clean up the beach
Yep.
by, they're taking out the patio and replacing it with a deck or vice versa.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Then
yeah,
they
yeah.
have the little stones that went
They're gonna
out
take
into
the boat
salt
away.
marsh.
Yep.
So we're gonna remove the stones,
Remove the boat.
remove the boat in the salt marsh. One of these days
All
I'll
by hand.
spell Minot.
All by hand.
Remove debris and boat by hand. We're gonna put a little post and rail single fence along the top,
Denoting.
single split rail, single rail fence.
Single rail, yeah.
And I believe that's it.
I believe as well. I don't have anything written down. I didn't have anything else written down.
No, I think it was the boat, the little path out there, and split rail fence to demarcate there.
Yeah, that fence can be low. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be, yeah.
It was from the engineer that you guys don't usually see.
Right.
That triggers a memory prevention.
Yes. Make a motion to accept the order as discussed.
Second.
According to that.
Any other questions? All in favor of the motion on the table, which is to accept the plan, to accept the order as discussed, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, unanimous, so moved. 23 Zell Street. I mean, yeah, 23 Zell Street. Yeah, the only one that's missing is
23 Zell Street was the dock.
1, 2, 3, 4 of us.
Yep, was the dock. That
Oh, the dock that they changed the little T for.
That Mike,
they changed, and Mike had a concern that there were more pilings out in the field than there were in the dock. And
Oh,
we
yeah,
met
yeah, yeah.
Next morning, and I can assure the board that the number of pilings on your plan is the correct number of pilings out in the
And what did I say? Mike, maybe you were at the wrong site.
Mike jogged left when he should have jogged right.
Right.
And so everything's in order.
I would like to accept the order as discussed.
Second.
Any replacement piles.
Okay?
Correct.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Lori?
Aye, sorry.
Same quorum.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. 153 Oyster Pond Road.
This will
Yep.
remove the 16-inch oak, replace it with another oak, 240 square feet of irrigation plantings. Staff didn't have any issues with it. I don't think the board had any issues with it. It was straight up, no irrigation, plants go in prior to addition unless it's the wrong kind of beer, and then we'll work with them. Do you want to put another tree? Is it one or two trees, Madam Chairman?
It shows one.
I understand it shows one.
But I was,
Because
and
I didn't
I
have
didn't,
anything written that the board wanted
I didn't-
additional
Oyster
trees.
Pond Road.
I don't remember.
that's the one off of it.
You
It's
remember
separate.
that.
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
Yeah, okay.
no.
I saw you looking.
Well, I was blank because I was thinking about something else.
Motion to accept the order as discussed.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Please adjourn now.
Yeah, let's adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.